Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the November Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thank you for joining us today. My name is John Milner, and I'm chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Typical of HP, we have a very full agenda today, and it's my goal to get everyone out of here early. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during the meeting. This ensures commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you are called upon. When you speak at the podium, please state your name and address for our records. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. Please be thorough, but also mindful of your time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov site. If you're following along online, select Agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with the commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission. So if you brought handouts, examples with you, please keep them at your seat as we cannot accept and review. I repeat, we cannot accept new information to review in today's meeting that was not submitted previously. Keith, will you please call roll for us?
Milner.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Gaines.
Present.
Hoare.
Present.
Whitley.
Present.
Wood.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For anyone unfamiliar with the process, please refer to the procedures section. There are 2 items we like to note specifically regarding this meeting process. These items involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Certificates of appropriateness. After an application is approved and the 10-day protest period expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. As far as appeal to Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying their certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals should be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, any news from the Office of Historic Preservation?
No news to report. There is a brief presentation I was going to just zip through if someone who can drive the PowerPoint could click over to that, since I don't have a mouse. Oh. So we've had a lot of applications for windows lately, and we've had lots of them go back and forth with requests for additional documentation of the existing windows and the proposed windows. So I put this together just for the commission, for our audience, for our applicants, and I'm gonna kind of continue to share this with applicants when they contact us about windows so that everyone knows what we're looking for. If the commission says, we think we need different documentation than this, by all means let us know, but this is what staff is kind of looking for when we're talking about windows. So if you go to the first one, so a lot of times we see pictures like this of historic wood windows that look kind of, for lack of a better term, gunky. You can see all of the stuff kind of clumped onto the window. But then if we go to the next one, what we're really looking at here are different elements of the window. You know, in the red is the window sill. This is part of the trim around the window. Those can be replaced. Those can be repaired or replaced, and that can be approved administratively, separate from replacing the entire window itself. In the green, you see the actual window sash. That's the wood elements of the window that are supporting and holding in the glass. That is where we're really looking for damage and deterioration, that water has gotten in and rotted that window, that it's skewed and out of alignment and doesn't open and close properly anymore, that wood has given way and can no longer be repaired. What you see in the yellow that often people hone in on as being deteriorated, that is glazing putty. And that is a separate material that is intended that serves the purpose of holding the glass into the window sash. Glazing putty is supposed to be removed and replaced as part of the maintenance cycle of the window. So when we see that and that looks all yucky and gunky, that's actually not necessarily a sign that the window's deteriorated. Here's a window workshop that we did where we removed and reinstalled that glazing putty. If you go to the next one, you can see this is where that putty is still there and is all, lining the glass around the window frame. And then in the next slide, it shows where that putty has been removed. And that muntin is really just like a stick of wood that the glass is sitting on top of, and the glazing putty goes around that frame, sealing in the glass between the wood elements of the window. This is a window that we worked on at a window workshop at the Hearn Homestead. This is a roughly 1904 wood window. And then the next slide, you can see after it was repaired, we did not even take this window out of the opening. This was scraping, painting, removing the glazing, reglazing the window, painting it again. Then when we talk about the replacement windows, if the windows do truly warrant replacement, what are we looking for in that documentation? Often we get kind of a generic brochure from a window manufacturer that tells us about their typical window sash, but what we really want to see is the entire window unit itself so that we can verify that it's going to match the historic window assembly. So not just the sash, but the mullions, the sills, the brick mold or the trim that goes around the window, all of those details, we need to be able to see what that's going to look like so that we can verify that it's going to match the historic window. Or we need to know that those components are not being replaced and they're just doing a sash replacement, which often that's a solution as well. And then, we want to see for the existing windows, close-up detailed photos where we can identify the issues with each particular window that's proposed to be replaced. And then for the proposed window, those accurate drawings that are specific to the window in question so that we know that it's going to match. That's all. I'll try to continue to make that available to people as we're talking about window replacement applications, but that's what staff's looking for when we review a proposal.
Katie, thank you.
Yes.
And just to reiterate, this now will live forever on this meeting agenda, right?
Yes.
So if we want to go back to it, and I'm sure if anybody had questions, they can contact your office and you can provide that presentation. That was great.
Does it live online anywhere else, or do they have to come back to?
So we can put it on our website. We could add more notes to it and put it just on the HP page. It'll stay in PrimeGov because it's in there, and that's how that works.
It'd probably be helpful for the people that don't know this meeting happened and are just going
Yeah.
online to look for resources.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
Next up, acceptance of minutes. Have commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the October 2nd meeting? And if so, do we have any questions or perhaps a motion to accept or modify?
I'll motion to accept the October minutes.
We have a motion to accept. Do we have a second? Thank you. Hey, we have a second. Thank you.
Fair to say, it wasn't a
Commissioners,
very contentious
please
motion.
vote in PrimeGov. Okay. Minutes have been accepted. Katie, anything from code enforcement?
Nothing in particular to report this month. As always, if you have items that you see on that report or that you think should be on that report, contact staff, or you can also contact the City of Oklahoma City Action Center for more information.
Okay, any continuance announcements or requests?
We have one new request for continuance. This is HPCA 24-00093. It's on the agenda under items for individual consideration. They'd like to be continued to January 3rd to allow more time to hopefully get that last remaining item administratively approved.
Okay. Do we have a motion to continue this item? Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been continued to the January commission. Next up, public hearings. Anything dilapidated structures?
No dilapidated structures, no National Register nominations this month.
Okay, and it looks like we have one item on the consent docket.
Yes. So staff recommended approval of this with no conditions. The commission can choose to pull it if you have further questions, but we didn't see any concerns with this proposal.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent docket.
Second. Sorry.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the consent docket, although I don't know if does anybody have my voting screen is stuck, it appears. Oh, here we go. We're back in business. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. For the-
Cass. Oh, yeah.
Keith, that's still up on the continuance item. Okay,
Is that
Okay.
isn't that what we're voting on?
so
Oh,
24-108.
we're doing consent docket, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh my.
I ate it.
Okay, we're doing a roll call vote for the consent docket.
Yes.
Oh, yay. Okay, thank you. Item on the consent docket has now been approved. If you are on the consent docket, congratulations, your project is approved. You have the option to stick around for the remainder of the meeting or head out. Next up, we'll go to items for individual consideration. And let's start with HPCA-24-0031 at 622 Northwest 27th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Paseo Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Alex Russell, Parna LLC, for Matthew Kahn, Cheviot Capital Holdings LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, modify east wall to firewall required, 2, relocate doors and windows to accommodate firewall required, 3, relocate heat and air from east wall to north and south walls, elective, 4, repair and replace siding as needed required, 5, repair and replace deck required, 6, extend west wall and alter roof pitch elective, 7, install new window on north elective, 8, relocate window from east wall to west elective, 9, replace balcony rail and door elective, 10, replace porch required, and 11, replace roof required. This is a property at which a good amount of work has already taken place. The applicant did not have a certificate of appropriateness and did not have permits in place prior to beginning construction. They have worked with HP staff and with Plan Review Development Services staff closely over the last several weeks and months to determine what the proper course of action was to remedy the work that they'd had already done. So they are undoing some of the work that had been done to expand this structure and are before us now for approval of what they've come up with as a solution. This is, again, an accessory building that's in the rear yard behind the house. They're not doing any work to the primary structure at this time, so it's all just on the accessory building. We have recommended approval of item 4, repairing and replacing siding, item 5, repair and replace deck, item 9, replace balcony rail and door, and item 11, replacing the roof. All other items are recommended for continuance for various reasons, including just additional documentation needed of materials or perhaps materials proposed that do not meet the applicable guidelines, design concerns, lack of detail on some of these items. So,
Okay, Katie, thank you. Is the applicant present? Okay, please come forward and state your name and address, and then tell us about the project.
And I assume I should write my name here too?
Yeah, and
Okay.
go ahead and state it for us as well, your
Sure.
name and address.
Yeah. My name is Matthew Kahn, and this is for the address 622 Northwest 27th Street.
Okay. Okay, tell us about your project.
Yeah, so this is a project that started earlier this year. I was working, as is described on here, with a gentleman named Alex Russell. He's actually since been replaced on the project. And it started, as was mentioned, then we got, we received a notice and then came in to the Historic Preservation Group's office to then look over the plans and to then do more diligence with plan review to understand what would be allowed to finish fixing up the work and basically just returning it back to its prior shape. That took a bit of time going back and forth to understand what, basically from talking with plan review, they made it clear that in order to get permits, we need to get the certificate of appropriateness, but to avoid going through this process multiple times, we wanted to talk to plan review before going through this process. So I was able to get preliminary approval from plan review, but I'll resubmit once I get the certificate of appropriateness in, and I think that's basically where we're at now.
Okay. Commissioners, what questions or comments do you have on this project?
One question I had was really more for staff. For items 6 and 8, is there a scenario in which we would ever approve that, or is that more of a deny with prejudice and hope that they come back with something that would be approvable?
So I think that is kind of at the commission's discretion. If you feel like the modifications that they're proposing are still, are either still in keeping with the character of the structure and the property, or are of minimal enough visibility that they aren't going to have an impact on the character of the property. This is a structure that appears to have evolved considerably over time, so there's already some integrity issues there. And I know they're trying to make modifications to just provide for more functional space on the interior without actually increasing the footprint of the building. I know it's not a design that we typically see in this, on these types of structures, but it is in the rear yard. It's minimally visible from the street. So I think there's nothing articulated specifically in the guidelines that would say you cannot have an asymmetrical roof form, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the asymmetrical roof is a little odd to me, but I mean, and there's been instances where, an applicant is building a new garage and the roof pitch is different from what was there originally to make it more functional. So, I don't see that as that different in this instance.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused. It's a huge packet. I'm a little confused about how much the footprint is actually going to be increasing. Like, what am I looking at that's staying versus going?
So the footprint, and actually this has already been done, raising the roof pitch on that side?
That has been done, and the footprint will not increase. Originally, that was going to be the plan, but then in talking with plan review, it was made clear that would not work. So any additions of square footage have since been removed, and now at this point, it's closing up the walls, repairing the siding, and bringing it back to usable shape.
So they're making the roof on one side of the building a shallower pitch to allow more headroom, but it's not actually increasing the footprint of the building.
Now, on one of these slides in attachment 2, it shows that both sides of the roof will be an 8/12 pitch,
So
like an A-frame?
that would be from the
Before, okay.
So actually, yeah, I have updated drawings that came in too late to be able to be reviewed for here, but the way it will be,
I see it, I got it.
yeah.
Which one is accurate, this 8/12 or the?
And then if you scroll down 5 more pages,
Okay,
say after.
Page 12.
got it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know, for me, I mean, I certainly understand the desire to have more headroom, more space in general, maximize an accessory building. For me, it's starting to morph into something that really doesn't look like it's at all in keeping with the historic nature of an accessory dwelling that we would typically see, not always, but typically. Sorry, my pages are a little slow to load as I'm scrolling through, but I'm struggling with the overall design and not just feeling like it's just kind of, we're sacrificing historic integrity and appearances to make room for space in a way that feels detrimental to the property.
Did I hear you correctly that you have new documents and designs that were not able to be submitted for consideration? Okay.
Yeah, it's the elevation drawings, and they're similar, but there are a couple things that are not 100% accurate that I
Okay.
was able to revise.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that would make me want to kind of wait and see that maybe, but I don't know if there's any feedback we need to provide prior to that.
I wondered if, because, you know, the peak isn't changing, like he's not growing it by several feet. So I wondered, and like I know the work's already been done, which is a bummer, but if the work hadn't been done, which is how we're supposed to review, I might recommend that, maybe you raise up the other side to meet the head height. So it's not asymmetrical. Because again, that's not, you're not turning it into some 2-story structure that you're going to be seen from the street, and that would be more in keeping with what we would see historically, because you don't really see that kind of salt box shape really anywhere around here, but certainly not on an ADU or detached structure. So that's what I would say if this had not been done. But whatever else the commission thinks.
Commissioners, any other questions on this one? Or comments?
I think we can probably, approve, like the siding and balcony, deck and rail and all that, and probably need to continue the other until we have his updated documentation. But since you already have that, are you cool to, do it at the December 4th meeting?
Yeah,
Okay, because that would need to be submitted by next Tuesday.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And let me ask, are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item that are here today? Right here? Come right on up to the podium. State your name and address.
Tammy Donnell, 601 Northwest 27th. I just kind of have a comment that there is a trend going on 27th of work being done on the weekends with no approval, no CAs, no permits, windows being torn out. This had an additional level put on it and things. So there are things going on the block of such a thing. I hope that you all can help this gentleman make a nice design with. But again, there is kind of just work being done that shouldn't be done. But anyway, that's why we're here today. So thank you for letting me make that comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katie, that would be, in that situation, is that I just want to make sure, so everybody, is that a code enforcement
Yeah,
item?
so code enforcement, building inspections is who goes out to tell people to stop doing work when they're doing work without a CA and without permits. They are dependent upon, and they're dependent upon people reporting things. They don't have capacity to just be patrolling for work. And I know it's very hard, especially when it's a weekend kind of thing. Stuff gets done, and by the time you come in Monday, it's already there. But yes, if things don't get turned in, then they don't get enforced, so.
We're bad guys for turning them in. In other words, you know the situation next door to me, so anyway.
Thank you,
folks.
thank you.
I don't know that I would be comfortable approving anything today if we have updated information that can be at the ready next week and really get a holistic view of what's going on with the property. I do think that this work that's being done, ask for forgiveness later kind of situation is becoming more and more common, and I would really like to see exactly what all is going to be a part of the project all at once before moving forward on it.
I do want to ask, so there's attachment 2A in here, which has a little bit more detail than what I was looking at in attachment 2, and I just want to make sure those aren't yes.
I didn't see any substantial changes between that, but
I was going to ask what changes he has, but I think you're right that we should see it in person.
Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant or comments? Or are we?
Are you okay just continuing this all so that we can do it in one fell swoop?
Yeah, with the updated drawings, I think that will definitely be
Okay,
helpful.
then I'll make a motion. Can I make a motion just to continue it all until next week?
Until December 4th.
I mean, until, December 4th.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue item HPCA-240031. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Jordan.
Sarah.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that was continued. Was that continued? Okay, that item is continued, and just so the applicant knows that any other documentation needs to be received by the HP office by this coming Tuesday,
Yep.
right? This coming Tuesday. Thank you. Okay, next item, HPCA-24-00060 at 315 Northwest 26th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Juan Meza, Kirsten Scott, Over the Top Roofing and Construction LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace roof elective, 2, replace siding elective, and 3, replace windows elective. The commission has seen this application twice previously, so there are no continuances remaining. The commission needs to either approve or deny the application at the meeting today. We have really not received any of the additional documentation that's been requested throughout this time. We got kind of an updated version of it, but really no new information after the last meeting. We don't have adequate documentation of windows for window replacement. We don't have documentation of a siding material that appears to meet the guidelines. There are just an assortment of details about the project, both included in the scope and not included but visible in the photos, that have not been adequately documented as part of this application. So we would recommend a denial with prejudice at this time.
Thank you, Katie. Is the applicant present? Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions on this project for
Nope.
staff?
I'd make a motion to.
Actually, I'm sorry. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for HPCA 240060 for denial with prejudice.
Okay, we've got a motion for denial with prejudice. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
It was Cassie that moved it, but
Okay. That item has been denied with prejudice. Okay, next up, HPCA-24-00069 at 832 Northwest 39th Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, construction and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Davis Hudeberg for certificate of appropriateness to construct new garage, elective. The commission has seen this application previously as well. This has come back with revisions twice now based on comments from the commission meeting. We have at this time recommended approval with a few conditions. One is additional window documentation to verify that windows meet the criteria for new windows, for windows in new construction. We've recommended 2 single-car garage doors instead of a double door. This has been noted in the staff report each time, but hasn't really been a topic of discussion. The guidelines do recommend 2 doors instead of a single 2-car width garage door. And then reduction in the square footage of the home gym attachment to be in keeping with the square footage of the kind of addition on the existing, the previously existing historic garage. And I'm sure the applicant can walk you through what other revisions have been made.
The applicant is present.
Hello, Holly
Please.
Hunt, Sam Gresham
Thanks.
Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. Yeah, we're thrilled with the recommendation for approval today. I do have an issue just with one of those conditions, so if we can chat about that. The home gym being, so I really am confused on the 166 square feet. My site plan lists all the square footage. The existing square footage is 181. So we're asking for just a little bit more of an expansion. I think on the site plan, it's the best example of where you can see the 2 floor plans are overlaid. So you can see the existing, you can see the new. It's just a 5-foot expansion of that whole, structure across the board. This makes for a nice, clean footprint. To reduce that further, I think it doesn't really match. It matches less with the historic configuration at the front side of that garage. So we really hope that, in seeing all the support that I've shown, we have had many, many letters of support from the neighbors with this current proposed. So I hope we can approve it at the current square footage.
so just, what was it that you're confused about? That you're just asking for more?
Yeah, so it's about a 9 square foot increase on my calculations, because the existing is at 181.
Is 181.
Yeah, and I've just never really caught that number until this time around, I guess, because we have always had so much to talk about. But again, the site plan where it shows the 2 overlaying, I mean, to me, yes, we are reasonably expanding it. That's true, but the increase is very meager, and I feel like it's doesn't really change much of like the overall massing anyway. We're talking, even
Holly,
the staff reports.
Do you know which attachment that is where you have the overlay?
Sure. Which attachment, what? Oh, the site plan? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Here, I've got it on the screen.
Page 7, attachment
So you
1.
can see the,
And as you can see, on that overlay drawing, the little offset in the front pretty much matches what's there. So in any reduction would be a reduction to that rear wall, which I don't think really suits anybody's needs here, nor the guidelines. It would make more sense to me to have that rear wall straight, as the current configuration is also.
Commissioners, what questions do we have for the applicant?
I have, I made some notes here. So if we go to page, what I marked as 266 of the handout, or page, let me look here, 8 of 11 of staff report. And this goes to what Commissioner Jordan commented last time, is that she believed, and I agreed with her, that we are being handed a 1.5-story garage that is in fact a 2-story garage.
Yeah, we kind of
But-
confirmed that last meeting.
But it says in here, on page 8 of 11, under the municipal code, that a half-story containing independent apartments or living quarters shall be considered as a full story. So I am totally not in any position to approve this garage as a 1.5-story garage whenever the municipal code says it's a 2-story garage.
We all agree it's a 2-story. We confirmed that
But-
last meeting.
So then we get to the next part of the fact that that 2-story garages are not dominant in the neighborhood, in this block area. I actually walked it myself and counted the number. There we go to the next step of what is abutting the property, and there is a 1.5-story garage that does abut the property, but there is not a 2-story garage that abuts the property.
Upon further
It-
observing, it's actually not a 1.5-story garage by this code either. It doesn't meet those criteria because it exceeds the 2/3 on the upper level. So again, we are in agreement. That's the massing and the way that we've addressed that roof is to give the appearance of a 1.5-story. So that's how we understand that we're asking for a little more than that 1.5-story. I mean, I think we were all in agreement last time that would have to be the case. But
That's
we
not,
have shown-
I would disagree with
and
that.
that we have shown that based on all of our, this is our third meeting, that we had finally gotten to the point, even the staff agrees that we've worked this thing, even though we're not calling it a 1.5-story, that is true. But this is a unique situation in a neighborhood that has considerable larger existing exterior structures. So here, we've talked about this, instead of covering the lot, we are stacking them. We're trying our best to get as close to that 1.5-story as we can, but agreed, we don't meet that criteria. But we are doing our best, I think, to be as historically accurate as possible. There's been absolutely no opposition to this application. So I would just love for us to, and if the 166 is what it's going to take, we'll do it, because I would really like to get this approved today.
So my point in the last meeting, and I'm looking at it here again, is I'm comfortable with the expansion of those last few feet. I agree that's not harming anybody from the back of that garage. I mean, I don't think it's impacting integrity. I don't think it's changing the overall scope of what we're looking at. What I said last month that is definitely not reflected here was that I felt really uncomfortable approving it as a 1.5-story garage because it's not one. And so the next time somebody comes up and they want something this tall and they say, well, administrative approvals, allow for 1.5-story garages in this area, they're going to cite this one and they're going to say, look how tall this one is, look at the full ceiling height, look at the exterior staircase. It was 1.5 stories, why can't I have it too? So my point last month was, if it is a 2-story garage, it needs to be proposed as one, it needs to be asked for as a 2-story, and it's still not.
Well, I'm sorry, I guess I didn't change that because we're all kind of privy to that. We had a short window of turnaround, I had revisions to do, I had things to get done, so I'm sorry, it is a 2-story.
Right, but when somebody looks at it, I think our point was, I totally hear what you're saying, and for you to go tell your clients that, I get that, but for us to tell somebody else, and they just pull up actual filed official minutes.
I think
But
that's
could
those
we-
unique
so
circumstances.
Could we make a unique or a specific finding that this is
Yeah.
being approved as a 2-story garage? Because, the guidelines do say that 2-story garages, are allowed if located in a block where 2 or 1.5-story garages are dominant or occur on an abutting property. And so that
So
does fall under
the
it.
agenda and the staff report just say construct garage. So you're not asking for a design change, you're just asking for it to be made clear in the record that it's 2 stories.
Well, last month when we talked about it, I said when it came back, the applicant needed to propose it as a 2-story and allow us to review it as a 2-story and approve it or deny it or continue it as a 2-story. and it's still in all the applicants' packets. And I know it seems like
Oh.
semantics, it's just that,
I can label it two-car garage or two-story. It's that, if that's what it is. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pull a fast one by calling it 1.5. I thought we had just gotten
I don't think you're
past
trying to
that.
pull a fast one, I just think
Yeah,
you're here
I
a
thought-
lot,
I
and if
just thought
that's
we've kinda
something that's a
gotten
pretty
past
simple change
Because
to
it's
make,
not
then it can
quite
be
a
made
true
before it
full
comes back to commission.
It's also not a full two-story either, where it's like
It
a
is. I mean, it
two-story
is.
wall. But no, it is a two-story. I'm just saying, it is a modified two-story to appear as a 1.5-story from the front, is all I'm saying.
So I think that
I'm not
if we
asking for-
were to motion to approve, there could be a condition that plans be
Yes.
updated to reflect that it's a two-story garage.
Yeah.
And there could be a unique circumstance justifying
Listed here.
approval of a two-story garage, and making clear in the findings that it is being considered as a two-story garage, and that it does not meet the criteria for 1.5-story, if that's the direction the commission wants to go.
I'm comfortable with that. My point is simply that for applicants, for future reference, for any of this that, gets put into the minutes, is that when we meet and we give the feedback and everybody agrees upon it with the feedback, and then they come back and they haven't made changes, but they're asking for us to verbally consent to it, it just gets muddy. And I think that we're getting into gray areas and we're getting
That's
really
fine.
subjective. And I think that,
course.
if we're giving thoughtful responses and agreeing upon it in these commissions, it needs to come back that way.
Yeah, it's just a small little correction
Right,
on my
it
end.
is a
And I'd
small
be
little
happy to
correction.
submit that right away as a condition, no problem.
Commissioners, do we have other questions for the applicant on this one?
We need to talk about the rest of the agreed upon conditions, if there's any. If the applicant is agreeable,
Yeah. I
and if
agree.
everybody, I said I was comfortable with the increased footprint, but I don't know if anybody else is.
It doesn't bother me.
And also on the third condition, we're okay to go with the 2 single doors if it's really, really important to the commission. That's fine. We had proposed the double, and I had given support last meeting showing how many double doors there are in this neighborhood, considerable over the next 2 blocks. So that's why, since it's a condition we see so often in the neighborhood, we asked for it. But again, that's not a deal breaker for us.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Is there none?
Katie, has the applicant been made aware of what they're lacking in the window department?
Yeah, I think we're good on the window documentation, on what needs to be submitted for windows.
Just waiting on the specs to come in. People are busy.
Okay, there's no other comments, do we?
I do have one other comment that I would just like to make.
Yeah.
Looking at the number of specific findings and conditions here and the, just the language, I'm not comfortable going through an approval on this. And I believe a better approach would be to do a denial without prejudice, get all of this resubmitted so that we're not having presented to us information that just isn't accurate. I want to see accurate information. I want to see garage doors that are complying with the code or the HP rules. I want to see not this number of specific findings and conditions in regard to a project like this. That's just my view of it, is I think it should be denied without prejudice.
I definitely hear your concern, but I also want to be respectful of it's time, it's additional money, and I trust our staff to be able to implement our requests, and all of that can be documented, our desires, like it is here in the findings and the conditions. So I'd hate to just extend and delay the process, it's everybody's time and money, including ours.
I mean, I tend to agree with you, Cassie, but I share the concern that, like, we see the same applicants over and over sometimes, and you know, if we're all in agreement that these are simple changes, then they need to be reflected because it is somebody's time and it is somebody's money and it is somebody's whole day, and we're still sitting up here talking about, well, we wanted this to be reflected because while it may not be important on paper, it is important to this docket. So, I mean, I'm in favor of moving it along today, but I just really want to stress for the record that it's not casual. Like these submittals, they're not casual, they're not just verbal. We are asking for real things to be reflected officially on paper so that we can make an educated, form an educated opinion and give you guidance about how to move forward. And so I really,
And, I mean, I do know that, and I take this very
right, I know, because you're here a lot and you do know
Right.
that. And so like the
but
window
with these quick
documentation, we just
turnarounds,
want
when
to
I
see
have
it.
3 on the
Well, but we'll
agenda, it
always
can
give
get
you another
really
month.
difficult. So I do apologize, but I promise I can work
But
with
we will
staff to clarify.
always
all
give you another month. And so that's like the problem here is that if you need another month, like just, we'll give it to you the first time.
It says homeowners that won't give me another month, but, well, you know, I appreciate it.
I mean, so what do we do in a circumstance like this where we're looking at item 11 or specific finding 11, 12, and 13 that are really no longer applicable because now we're hearing that, well, a specific finding under 11 would essentially, that doesn't exist anymore because we are looking at a 2-story garage, and a 2-story garage is not dominant and does not appear on an abutting property. I just don't see how we get there.
But a 1.5-story garage does appear on a budding property, and I think that's the allowance here.
But we're not approving a 1.5-story garage. We're
No,
approving a 2-story garage.
I know, but a 2-story garage can't be approved if there's a 1.5 on an abutting property.
No, it cannot.
Oh, well, that is worded very
Yeah,
confusingly.
number 11 does seem to state that if there is if number 11 states that a replacement garage may be 2 stories tall when the original or historic garage was 2 stories, or if located in a block where 2-story or 1.5-story garages are dominant.
Or occur on an abutting property.
Right.
That's what confused me.
So if a 1.5-story is on an abutting property, you can approve a 1.5-story on the next door property. If it's a 2-story, then you can approve a 2-story
Yeah,
on
sure, the wording is just confusing.
Yeah, I was reading it as if there's a 1.5-story, you could approve a 2-story.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, what it reads like.
Not that I agree or disagree, that's just my interpretation of that language.
It does say 1.5-story, I'm sorry.
Okay,
If it's in a block where 2-story or 1.5-story garages are dominant or occur on abutting properties, you can go to 2 stories.
And are we positive that this number 11, as written in the staff report, is the correct language that is in the guidelines, that it wasn't just some sort of a,
It is on page like 9 that says
Yeah,
that.
that is correct. So 11 is correct. I think honestly, you could strike 12 and 13 from the findings since we're just considering this to be a 2-story garage.
Okay.
And say that because there are abutting and surrounding 1.5-story garages, a 2-story garage is allowed.
yeah. I think we're just gonna have to come up with a way as a commission and as staff to enforce sending everything before we review it, because we have a lot of these, and so then to Cassie's point, we are going to see 5 or 6 of these again next month simply because people have not submitted everything that's been asked for. I know it can be confusing, but you know, when people are here a lot, it should be less so.
Yeah. I also always think there'll be stuff that we're going to ask for that wasn't in the original packet. There's just no way that's not going to happen. So that's why we have staff, to make sure that that's submitted.
Commissioners, do we have a motion on this item?
I'll move to approve HPCA 24-00069, number 2, with the specific findings listed by staff, with deleting items number 12 and 13.
And with, I think, conditions,
conditions.
Yeah, all those.
with conditions
2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Yes.
And with the added condition that it is proposed as a 2-story.
Okay,
Is
we've
that a
got
condition or a finding?
I don't know.
I think I would say with the finding that the garage
Okay.
is,
Yeah.
how you want to lift that in staff.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve with conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
And finding, excuse me. And we have a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Thank you, commissioners, and I will definitely be more diligent next time just to keep everything very clear. Appreciate it.
That item has been approved. We'll go to the next item, HPCA-24-00074 at 837 Northwest 42nd Street. Katie, tell us about the project.
This is in Crowd Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Bob Sign Construction for Stephen Randolph for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace all windows, elective. The commission has seen this application once previously. The application was continued with the request that we get better documentation of both the existing windows and the proposed replacement windows. The applicant has sent over additional photos. I'm having some technical difficulties with getting them to come across to staff in a legible format where you can zoom in. Applicant has brought actual real photographs from a real camera that I said it would be fine to pass those around the horseshoe since it's not new plans, documents, et cetera. And you all are welcome to look at those as much or as little as you feel comfortable. Staff has been out to the site as well and does feel like a significant number of the windows at least are warrant replacement. We were less certain on some of them that are under the cover of the front porch that appear to have been fairly well protected from the elements, but they certainly are in a deteriorated condition throughout most of the house. On the new window documentation, as we touched on at the beginning of the meeting, we're just looking for the specific drawings, dimensions, architectural details of which components of the windows are being replaced and is that going to replicate the historic condition that's there.
Which you can approve administratively.
I think that is something that could be a condition of an approval to be submitted to staff.
On all of these, like you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, you said we have these that always come up where you need additional information on more specifics. Is that a situation where applicants just don't know exactly what needs to be submitted until we get into the process? Because it seems pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's like endemic.
It's endemic, but is it part of the reason? Because I want to make sure we're not. I mean, we can beat our heads against the wall, but if this is because when they get into the process, then they figure out, even to the meeting, oh, we needed that.
Yeah, I mean,
are you going to be able to fix it?
We try to work with applicants and to provide examples to applicants of what needs to be submitted as far as documentation. The images that were on the presentation earlier of the drawing of the window with the elevation drawing and the dimensions and the section drawing of the dimensions, that's in the application packet. That's actually the entire back page of the application is specifically about window replacement. I think part of the challenge is that your typical window manufacturer, your window salesperson doesn't provide that level of detail when you just go order, a dozen windows or something. That detail is available. It can be provided, it can be created, but it's something above and beyond what the typical kind of documentation is that you get when you order windows. And so it's a matter of us working with applicants to confirm what is being replaced. Are you going all the way back to the rough opening, or are you just replacing the sash? And then when you're replacing it, providing the details of what's being replaced. So in my opinion, we provide a great deal of information up front about exactly what needs to be submitted, but we're always happy to continue to work with applicants and try and get exactly what documentation is needed.
Okay, we've got the applicant here. Please state your name and address.
Bob Sign Construction. Mr. Randolph was going to come today, but he called me early this morning, said he felt poorly and couldn't make it, so I'm here by myself. But there's a couple things that I'd like to say is that I think, Katie, we've been working pretty close with Pella Window on the design to fit the rough opening. And I think the other one that we submitted, Katie, that you've gotten, was a revised from Pella that conforms with all the things that you had sent to us that needed to be for documentation, and actually some cut sheets on the windows itself. So I don't know if you've got those. I think that it should be in the packet, but
Robbie has been working on this application. I'll let her speak to what we've got so far.
Yes, so we received what you have from Pella, and we received the new information, but what we have not received is exactly the dimensions of the windows as they sit now, like with your mullions, how wide those are. Are those being replaced? There's several different,
if you look on the packet, you'll see that maybe they're small, I know that, but there are mullions between the twins and the doubles that are consistent with what is existing now on the structure.
I think is it a measurement deal? We're actually looking for the measurements? Is that what
right,
you're?
we need the measurements of the existing windows compared to the windows that he's wanting to put in.
Okay.
That's
And-
what's,
And which one of those have we not received? Do we have dimensions on new windows?
we have dimensions
We don't have,
basically on the new windows, of the window sizes, but we can't tell for sure that they are the same dimensions of, all of the pieces are the same dimensions of the existing windows.
because we need dimensions of existing windows.
I don't think we're ever going to get the exact size to go back in there, because our plan is to go from the brick to the brick, and then with the replacement window. They will have trim on the side that's comparable with the existing now, but you're never going to get the exact window size to go in the opening.
I just want to be clear, Robbie, can you come back up? And I'm sorry, because we do get this a lot. You're just looking for photos of the windows with dimensions of the windows, correct?
They can be drawings, probably.
Of the window size that's currently in there.
Of the window
Regardless
along
of
with,
the replacement, right?
right.
It's just, we just need a drawing of the window that's currently there in dimensions. Is that correct?
We need-
I feel like I need to get the
So
understanding too.
We need either, well, ideally, it would be a photo of the window and of the sets of windows labeled on the photo with the dimensions of the elements that are being replaced. And then it would be a drawing of the replacement window comparable to that, so that we can look at the two and see that they'll match. This is the drawing that we have for these windows. This does not show a brick mold. This does not appear to show, this doesn't have the dimensions of the mullion. I have no way of knowing if this is going to look like an approximation of the historic windows. There's no detail to the components of that. And there should be no reason that you can't fit, these are standard window sizes. These are not unusual windows in this house. So we should be able to get a combination of windows and trim that fit the opening the same as the historic windows. And that's the level of detail that we don't have to be able to confirm whether or not it meets the guidelines for a window replacement.
And I'm largely asking for me to always make sure I understand the process. Actually, can we go back to that?
Yeah.
The dimension drawing? This is this the measurements of the new windows?
Yes.
So what you're looking for and wanting to do is, I understand this is, maybe it's because it's blown up, this is kind of hard to read, but you want to be able to side by side to the dimensions of the windows that are currently there, right?
Yep. And it's the dimensions, and it's also the architectural details. It's the profile, like the brick mold on this house has a little beaded profile detail that goes all the way around and creates a little shadow line around the windows. That's something that should be replicated when you replace those windows. If you're ripping that trim out, the trim that goes back in should match. And we don't have anything showing that that's included in this proposal.
It's just enlarged section details that show the profiles and sizes of your head, your jamb, your sill, your spread mole, your muntins. And I know that Pella makes those because I use them when I spec Pella windows on projects. So it's should be easy enough to get from them, but I think that's the biggest part of what they're looking for, to make sure that your jambs are the same sizes and all of your trim has the same profile, and
If we can get that same profile on the trim, actual trim, or
And Robbie, I'm sorry, one other thing. You did a site visit, correct?
Correct.
Is there anything you want to add to?
Looking at the windows in person, I think gave us a better idea that they do look like they're beyond 50% deteriorated around the house. I think that he has sent in a significant number of pictures. It's not clear by the pictures and what you're seeing, but seeing them in person, we felt like they probably are deteriorated, and replacing them is, we just need to find the right windows.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, what questions or comments do you have for the applicant?
I don't know that I have any. I'd be really in favor of the proposal if we can get the documentation that's required. I feel comfortable with the window replacement. I know there was kind of some discussion last month about, potentially not replacing those that are covered by the porch. I'm not really hung up on that. I do think eventually those will need to be replaced too, and I think it's a nice opportunity to thoughtfully, while we have an applicant who's trying to do it well and trying to be a good steward of this home, it's a really nice opportunity to go ahead and move forward on those. I'm very comfortable with it if we get the right documentation.
So Katie, we just had this discussion about having the right information. So if the commission agrees that windows can be replaced, agree that basically we have the right windows, or is the commission comfortable with approving this with you approving the correct information is submitted?
Yes, I think if you all are comfortable with the windows being replaced and specify that documentation of windows that meet the applicable criteria and that fully describe the windows as submitted to staff, I think that's something that we can do as a condition of an approval. One thing that we haven't talked about a whole lot with this, because we haven't had the level of documentation on the new windows that we wanted, is that this is proposing a simulated divided light throughout, whereas the guidelines would say it should be a true divided light window for replacement of a historic window.
Some of the windows, Katie, are not they're 1/1.
Right, and where it's 1/1, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah, they're
relevant.
some
But
are
for the ones that are
1/1.
6/1 or other
9/1,
paint
some of them are
configurations,
8/1.
they're proposing a 7/8 inch simulated divided light with spacer bar. That is what we typically approve on new construction and on additions, but the guidelines say for within the historic structure, it should be a true divided light.
But we did have a discussion in September, I think, on that, because
Where we approved
we
a
approved
simulated
because
light.
when we said we need to readdress that because we're never going to be able to find those. I mean, they make them, but
Right, well, you can get a true divided light thermal
$1,000
pane
a
window
window.
that has a much thicker muntin than a true divided light, than a simulated divided light thermal pane window. You can also get a true divided light single pane window and put the storm windows on and get a similar insulation value. So there are a variety of options, but yes, we have in a number of cases looked at the comparison between a true divided light product and the appearance of that muntin compared to a simulated divided light that can get a narrower profile that more accurately replicates the historic
well, I think we
muntin.
were discussing that we need to go back and address that because if you're spending that much money to redo your windows, to redo them with a single pane and put
Storm windows,
storm
yeah,
windows
it
on it
sucks.
is not a reasonable.
Also, in my opinion, that just changes the look of the window anyway, because now you've got a glare in
You're
front of
hiding.
it. You're not actually even really seeing the profile. So like at that point, what does the profile matter? Just do the more historic profile, let someone get an insulated window and
Right,
be
I
done
agree.
with it. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Okay.
If they're spending the money and trying to do this as correctly as they can. So I'm
So,
cool with a simulated
I
light.
raised that so that if you all do go in the direction of recommending approval with the condition that window documentation be submitted to staff, I'd want you to specifically call out whether or not the simulated divided light is acceptable, because the guidelines say not to do that. But if we're doing that, we'd want that to be identified as part of the condition and to have a finding or unique circumstance addressing the divided light.
Because it would be simulated divided light, or it would be true divided light with a wider muntin. So either one, they're got to be conditions, circumstances.
Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Appears there are not. Commissioners, any last questions or comments? Or somebody want to make a motion on this one?
I will make a motion to approve HPCA 24-00074 with the specific findings noted in the staff report, with the added condition that the applicant submit all required window materials to staff, and with the specific finding that the window would be a simulated divided light.
Okay, we have a motion for approval with conditions and specific findings. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been approved. And please just get with Katie and staff on those remaining items for documentation.
Yes.
I know Katie or Robbie can help you with that.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, and I know Mr. Randolph was very appreciative too.
We need to keep those photos as part of the record.
Okay, next up, we have HPCA-24-00086 at 440 Northwest 22nd Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Rachel Lawler for certificate of appropriateness to one replace front door elective. You all don't see too many front door replacement applications, but this is a particularly prominent and architecturally detailed front door, and the proposed replacement is not a replica of what's there now, so this is before you for your consideration. We've heard from the applicant that they would not be able to be here today, but would appreciate feedback from the commission so that they have a direction going forward. So this shows the existing door that aligns with the side lights with the muntins, and what is proposed is a solid wood door that the applicant has indicated could be built in such a way that the panels would still align with that muntin pattern.
Okay, and if I'm correct, the applicant will not be here today, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, what discussion do we have on this item?
I sympathize with the all-glass door. I have one too, but I think it is really character defining and really intentional. I don't know that I could get behind replacing it with solid wood.
I know I can't get behind it.
I agree. It is a very prominent feature.
How do we feel about its need to be replaced at all? I mean, those photos kind of broadly.
So,
Yeah.
well,
Absolutely.
we have had some conversations with the applicant. This door has been repaired many, many times to the point where a majority of the door is the repair. There's not a lot left to continue to drill into and patch onto. I think they, and Angela may have more detail than I do, but I think staff was convinced that they have salvaged this door as far as they can salvage it, and it's at the point where it needs to be completely rebuilt or replaced.
Okay.
Okay.
I have more sympathy if it's like a ship of Theseus, situation here where
Yes, yeah.
it's not almost none of it's original anymore. But I don't love replacing it with solid wood. I mean, it'd even be one thing if they didn't have the matching side lights, but like that specifically, it's all part of, a design, and that's very intentional with the aligned muntins. And so even
Yeah.
if you were to do some kind of inset thinner panel or something, I don't.
And so all we have is these black and white drawings, right? Right. Of what they, okay.
Yeah, I think, there's, I don't know, like implied historic usage behind these windows and these doors, that things were communal, and that's why we have porches, and that's why we have these front glass doors, and it feels like a really big shift to me, and I think it's a very character defining feature of this type of prairie home, and I would be in favor of a replacement with something similar to what is there.
And they're okay with the continuance, they just wanted input from the commission?
Yes, I think they are anticipating a continuance.
To
Do we
January?
know
Is it the
January or
January?
December?
January, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? If not, commissioners, do we have a motion for continuance?
I will motion to motion to continue HPCA 24-00086. Item 1 with the specific findings referenced in the staff report to the January 1st?
January 3rd.
Third.
Okay.
By the way,
I was like, no,
your
it's
January
not.
meeting's on a Friday. Please check your calendar.
Oh, January 3rd meeting. Okay.
I had the right Wednesday, I just didn't have the right meeting date, okay. So we've got a motion to continue that to the January 3rd commission meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. All other commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been continued. Thank you. Next up, HPCA-24-00089 at 1009 Northwest 17th Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Travis Phipps for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct first floor addition elective, and 2, construct dormer elective. The commission saw this previously and discussed some possible revisions to the design. This is an unusual house with a bay window on the side, and the applicant has proposed an addition that would come out on the side of the house, tucked behind the bay window. They have made some revisions to the proposed design based on the comments from the previous commission meeting, and staff is basically just deferring to you all and recommending continuance for further discussion by the commission. There's also a dormer proposed that is behind an existing roof feature, and staff had less of a concern about the impact of that dormer. It appears to be pretty minimally visible based on the placement.
Okay, the applicant is present.
Yes.
Okay, please state your name and address.
My name is Travis Phibbs. My home address is 126 Northwest 22nd Street.
Okay, tell us about the project.
This project, well, first off, I want to appreciate everybody's time looking at this and staff's help in navigating through the process here. So, can we actually, so we talked about this last time. What we're looking at here would be the east side of the property where there would be an extension, 6 foot, and it's right behind the bay window. That is the back room that's currently the master bedroom. And there's a master bath, that's a master suite or primary suite. And it is currently very long and narrow room. It would add a lot of value to the home overall if there was the option to expand that room and make it a little bit bigger where you could put a king-size bed in that room. Currently, you get about a full-size bed in that room. Can we flip to one of the pages, maybe a couple down? Maybe keep going. Oh, can we look at the
Design?
some design drawings, please?
Yep, I can share my screen, and I have them pulled up on my screen if you, here, I can. Yeah, so
Okay.
there's your existing site plan.
That one's good.
Okay.
Okay, so previously there was an angled wall that was coming off of the bay window. What we had tried to do was match a similar angle to the bay window to just kind of do what I would call a kind of a way to look out of that back bay window and not see the extension of the house. That way, when you look out the back bay window, you see more of there's a little garden right there. You can see the neighbor's house, kind of keeping that open. It's kind of, the bay window is one of the nicest rooms in the entire house, so we want to retain the value of that by not looking straight into a wall. And so we do have a little bit of a nook that you can see into the extension that pushes the 6 foot extension up to the north a little bit, which makes that view from the bay window still an option to kind of see kind of the garden right there and the neighbor's house and everything, so you're not looking at a wall. We did take away the angled wall, which I think was probably one of the biggest concerns last time. So I would like to ask the commission how they feel about this project as it's drawn.
Okay, commissioners, what questions do we have for the applicant?
Oh, there's some other drawings that may do a little bit better job of explaining the floor plan and why this is of value to the overall home, particularly for those who weren't able to look at this last time. This is the existing, and it's rotated now, but you can see the primary bedroom and how narrow it is. It's 9.5 feet wide. And if you go to this one, now you can see it's, well, 6 foot wider.
So you're taking it, where you have that 4 foot right there, that was the angled part, so you just pulled that back?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
And so the scope of this project and the whole kind of premise of a side expansion is because it doesn't add a lot of value to go to the north to do a 20-foot addition to the north side of this house, although it would probably be the most economical thing to do. But it is not necessarily what we want in the house. Adding a small addition makes the house a little bit more functional. And one of the great things about this house is the backyard, and so the ability to see when you walk out the back. It has a pretty large porch. You can kind of see it outlined there, and you can see the big trees and neighbors' yards, and it feels really nice back there. If we add an extension onto the back of the house, kind of what the guidelines would recommend, I think it would take away from the aesthetics of the backyard, and I just don't see a reason to do that. That's why we propose a small addition to the east side of the house.
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with the angled approach you're taking last time, just because I thought it would kind of match the angles that are there. I know there was some conversation about the utilization of it. Personally, I thought the utilization of it was your concern and not ours. But I mean, if this one works for you, that's great too.
I personally like the angled better, but I do understand if the commission doesn't feel like that angled wall fit into the neighborhood or into kind of old style building plans.
Yeah, I remember this one from a couple of months ago, and I think we had, a lot of discussion about it, and specifically about the angled wall. And I feel like where we left that was that, that bay window is so character defining, and it's such a special and unique, feature of that house that the angled wall kind of competed with it a little bit. Or at least that was my personal feeling, but I feel like David and I agreed on that. And I agree with you that I think you should be able to utilize your space the way you want, and it doesn't make sense to go north and make your bedroom that's already too long and skinny even longer and skinnier. So I get it. I understand it. I prefer the squared off version. I don't have a problem with it. Yeah, you'll see a little bit of it from the street, but it's pretty far back. It would be like, a specific angle where you'd be seeing it. I don't think it's taking away from the historic character of the house personally. So I am in favor of this, and I would be happy to move it forward, but.
I think the biggest obstacle we have is that the guidelines don't allow for additions on the side, correct?
The guidelines do have provisions for here. I'm gonna switch
We
back
walk
over here
through
so I
those,
can-
because I'm in favor
Yeah.
of it too, but I
Yeah.
want to make sure that we allow ourselves some really specific conversations here about why we are comfortable with this if we're not going to be consistently comfortable with side additions.
Yeah, if that's the case, then I would for sure want to make it a unique condition, that he's trying to make the that space more functional and not take away from, the backyard, which is a really important feature.
Yeah,
for that.
to me, the unique circumstances are really that this is the best way to utilize the home in a way that preserves two more impactful historic features, being the really preserved, pristine rear of the house and the bay window.
So 4.3.2 says new additions must be planned so that they are constructed to the back of the property or on a non-character defining elevation, preferably not visible from the public right-of-way. Character defining features of buildings should not be radically changed, obscured, damaged, or destroyed by an addition. The existing historic building fabric should not be damaged by the installation of a new addition. And there is it doesn't show in the staff report, of course, but there are graphics in the guidelines document that show side additions that are, set back from the front elevation, kind of tucked around the corner or side of a building. So there is an allowance there for an addition on the side of a house. And I agree with your observation that I think the placement of this is perhaps the most sensitive that you could choose from on this house to still keep other existing historic features.
It may not be the back elevation specifically, but it is at the back of the house, which I think, is as close as you can get if you're not extending it north.
Does anybody have any commentary on the dormer?
I think we beat that up last time.
I'd be happy to talk to the dormer if anybody would like to hear.
Did staff have
commentary
any,
on it.
I mean, I know it's recommended for continuance, but I think it was just to have an overall scope of project.
I think our primary concern was finding consensus on the side addition, and then just that the construction of the dormer is kind of contingent upon what happens with the roof form at the first floor addition. So we felt that it was important that they be approved at the same time, because if one is approved and the other one isn't, that's going to change all of your plan and elevation drawings.
This is the windows as well, because they may be tinted. You might want to address that in your findings.
Yeah, I'm cool with the dormer. I appreciate that it's pushed back from the bay window, so that's still kind of the highlight there, because I think that is the fun, special, unique, character defining, part of this home. So I can get on board with the dormer.
Are you comfortable going to clear glass and not tinted glass on the dormer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the problems that we've had is the conversation with Consolidated Building Supply, asking them about the windows, is kind of the reflectivity doesn't necessarily match with the code, what the guidelines recommended when they were written. But they have assured me that the glass is clear, and we will make sure the glass is clear before we put them in.
Okay.
I have
sorry, go
one
ahead.
question. I mean, this is just me. I don't know if anybody else feels, sorry you have to put up with me on this. When I'm looking at the site plan drawing that shows it's 16 of 46 in the attachment, I don't know why I have a problem with that 4 foot actually attaching to the bay window. I think it kind of destroys the character of the side here, and how the front of the bay window looks. Now the back doesn't look that way, where if you just left the 4 foot, I mean, I think that little 4 foot attaching where it does to the bay window, rather than being the original existing wall, does alter the character of the bay window at the back.
When you say it attaches to the bay window,
Yeah, it's 2 feet off the bay window.
Huh?
oh,
2 feet
means
off the bay window.
he means following the line of the window that would be furthest to the, I guess, is that the north?
This right here,
So like making it 5 feet instead of 4 feet so that it shifts onto
yeah,
the
yeah.
wall.
So if you view the front of the house, and then when you come to the bay window, there's that piece that goes out from the home. Then you have the bay window, but you no longer have that connection back to the home.
Okay.
I think it's my personal opinion that we maintain that character of the back window if that 4 foot, I take it that that's 4 foot in length, 4 foot north from the bay window, actually just stayed at the existing wall. Because I think I'm not doing a good job of it explaining
Like that
this.
to really be
I
about
understand what
5
you're
feet.
saying. Yeah.
I think you
I would like this
Yeah.
wall here to be back here, so that you have the full
So
bay window
you'd like him to mimic the setback dimensions of the existing bay window on each side?
on each side. That's my view of it.
But there's not a window in that part of the bay window.
No, but I'm just saying the view of it. Yeah, no, there is no window on
He
those edges.
wants to preserve the octagon shape
Yeah, the
versus,
symmetrical
Yeah.
setback of the main elevation.
Right.
I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
so one
Sorry,
side
it took
matches-
me so
well,
long to
no,
get to-
no,
No, we need a laser pointer for you guys.
yeah, we
to-
do.
I think that window is a prominent feature of the house, and having it mirror it on the other side
Yes.
does 100% preserve that bay window.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm
Is
saying.
that something that could be done?
So Katie and I have talked about this, Angela and I have talked about this. And so it's only, I think, 18 inches of a kind of, it's an 18-inch variance between where the wall is and where the bay window kind of starts to turn back to the back to the southeast. The project's already obscure and a little bit weird. My preference would be to leave it as it is. You can't see it from the road. You won't be able to tell the difference in the road. I think by creating a little bit of I don't know what you call that, a nook right there, you end up maybe creating some problems with the roof lines, and you end up creating some problems with, if you ever need to replace the siding in that area, you might end up even having some ice or snow build up in that area that may not be great. Because you can't see it from the road, and I respectfully agree that the bay window is a prominent feature of the home, and I agree 100%. I just don't personally feel like it takes away from. I just don't feel like it takes away from the bay window.
Well, I thought
it's behind a different wall.
I thought we had talked about that being a structural problem last time, and that's why it was done that way, because we had the angle first instead of going back in. Because I kind of agree with you that would be, having a notch like that would cause some problems. And you're not going to notice that difference unless you're standing right in that corner.
Yeah, and it's 6 feet to the existing fence. Like, that's almost nothing. It'd be one thing.
Y'all
you know-
convinced me.
Okay,
That's all. I just wanted to discuss it.
Okay.
I'm comfortable making a motion.
I understand your
If that wants to
point.
speak.
Yeah, when you
Yeah.
said it,
But I
I
think
see it, yeah.
it would create some, practical nightmares for you that you probably
Thank you.
don't need.
Do we even need a unique circumstance since section 4.3.2 allows for, or do we just need to reference that 4.3.2 allows for this and that we are in agreement that this is not impacting a
Yeah,
character
I don't think you need a unique circumstance.
Okay. I would be happy to make a motion if nobody else wants to speak on it.
Yeah, are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
Nope,
It
okay.
appears there are none. Commissioners, any other questions, or do we have a motion?
I will make a motion. Wanted to make sure we had no agreed upon, well, we do have does that need to be an agreed upon?
The glass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not listed as agreed upon in here, but it's a specific finding, so I didn't know if I needed to separate it out.
Yeah, I think it's worth supporting
that as a Okay. I will motion to approve HPCA 24-00089, items 1 and 2, with the specific findings in the staff report and the agreed upon condition that the glass in the dormer window is to be clear and untinted.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval with conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate it.
Thought you were about to add some new information and make us start over.
Okay, that item has been approved. Thank you.
Run while you can.
Okay, our next item was continued, so let's go to HPCA-24-00105 at 434 Northwest 35th Street.
This is located in Edgemere Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Brian Fitzsimmons Architects for Colette Buxton for certificate of appropriateness to, I'm not going to read all 11 items, but to make an assortment of repairs and renovations to the existing primary structure, and to demolish the existing garage and construct a new garage, and to construct a second-story addition. So the bulk of this application we have recommended for approval. As I said, lots of in-kind repairs and updates to existing historic features that will match the existing condition and that meet applicable guidelines. The main items of note are the demolition of the existing garage and then replacement with a garage that does occupy a significantly larger footprint. It is only 1 story, but it does increase the size of the garage, moves it slightly farther back into the yard and extends the driveway. And then the construction of an addition at the 2nd story of the house, essentially creating a usable space in the attic with a roof that projects out from the rear slope. The addition does not increase the footprint of the house at all, it just is creating livable space within the existing attic. But it is an almost flat roof extending out off the hip of the rear of the dwelling, and then with a balcony that would extend out from that as well. So we did recommend approval for most items, and I think we gave you a recommendation of continuance or approval on the garage, just based on considerations of size of the proposed structure.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Hey, my name is Spencer Wilson with Fitzsimmons Architects at 2721 North Walker Avenue, representing Collette and Scott Buxton.
Okay, thank you.
Staff handled a summary of the project very well, so unless you would like me to elaborate further on some items, I'll field any questions you have.
Commissioners, what questions do we have for the applicant on this project?
Do we know what the overall square footage increase is? I was going quickly and I didn't see it. On the garage.
On the garage?
Yeah.
So the existing garage is a little over 500 square feet, and we're increasing it to a little over 800 square feet. And so the increase of the garage is we're constructing a garage that's a little bit larger to accommodate modern vehicles, and then we're adding an addition on the back of it to serve as like a private office hobby room separate from the house.
Katie, could we take a look at the rear and side proposed elevations? So the west, east, and south elevations?
I will do my best.
I know it's a huge amount of information in this one.
I should have split this into multiple attachments because it is a really large one. As I'm scrolling to that, were there other garage questions?
I mean, my question would just be why there's just one big bay, if it's possible to.
The existing garage only has one large bay as well.
Am I looking at it? Oh, the existing only had one. Was that historic, the one bay?
Unlikely, but we have no documentation showing what it looked like prior to the one bay being installed. We do know that the door is not historic, however.
Right. I think the one large bay is really contributing to what feels like a very large scale for this garage. I don't know, it's for me lacking something that's maybe attaching it a little more to the house architecturally.
I mean, if we ask them to put 2 doors in, that would just be like a design, you know.
Yeah, I was trying to see how wide the proposed was so that it could accommodate, to see if it could even accommodate 2 versus 1, but.
I think it is proposed as an 18-foot door.
Yes, that's
That
correct.
is larger than typical. Is that accurate?
Yes, for now.
Okay. I don't have that.
Can we talk about the paver units? I know these came up in Heritage Hills not too terribly long ago, I think. And we said no to those.
So I think we had some that were proposed in a front yard.
Yes.
Where
It was a side front, but yes.
The goal was to create some parking space in the yard, and at least one of the concerns voiced was, it's just going to look like you're parking in your yard, and you're
Right.
going to get tickets and people calling and complaining because you're parking in your front yard. I think in this context, with it being in the backyard, that's less of an issue from an enforcement perspective, and the guidelines do support the use of permeable paving materials. So if plan review signs off on it, I don't know that, we didn't have a concern about it from a HP guideline perspective.
I'm not bothered.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my two concerns were the large scale of that single garage door and the back roof line, like better seen from one of the east or west elevations, but the height and seeming lack of historically appropriate slope on that roof line of the addition. I think we often see like dormer bump outs in this neighborhood, and I could certainly get on board with that, but this feels disjointed from the historic home to me.
Well, we don't typically approve TPO on home roof additions, right? Like where you've got, asphalt shingle existing.
We don't see a lot of flat roof additions, so it doesn't come up terribly frequently. We don't, on an existing flat roofed building, we don't review replacement of the roof material so long as it meets code. So I assume most of those are TPO, and we're just not reviewing it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of TPO in the historic districts, but usually it's
Yeah, it would be
very
like in
secondary.
Paseo.
Yeah, or just very, I mean, I have some, I have it in 2 spots, but just very, very secondary to the roofing material that's on the
Yeah, it might be
main
like
steps of the
little
house.
covered porch
Right.
additions
This
or something.
feels
yeah,
expansive.
yeah, that's a little bit harder.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about kind of what TPO really looks like, and most of the homes around this one are probably 1 to 1.5 story. So this feels pretty tall on that note, but also just, I understand that it won't be as visible from somebody's bedroom window or anything, but could be a lot of gleaming white TPO.
So to elaborate on that, we're actually calling for a darker color TPO, like a darker tan color, to address that issue. And we elected to go with the flat roof to try and keep the profile as low as possible below the ridgeline of the roof. So just with the way that we've saddled it, we've tried to make a distinct addition that separates itself from the historic envelope of the building, and that sits very precisely behind it. So it doesn't detract from the historical character of the building when you're in the neighborhood.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any other questions on this application? I do want to point out that I do think we have some comments from the neighborhood attached to this one.
I did have one other question. Typically, the commission feels weird about exposed steel columns. We almost always have them wrap it with something, or do, like a beefier timber column. So I just wanted to point that out in case the commission didn't notice.
Yeah, I would echo, I don't know the last time we've seen, and I mean, I may have just not, maybe these get administratively approved, but I don't think we see a lot of steel railings either.
They do have wrought iron style metal
Right.
railings on the front of the house. So I didn't feel concerned about it being a painted finish metal railing on the back, but I hear what you're saying about the column itself being a metal
Yeah,
column.
just one of those things that we always make everybody else wrap it or change the material.
Were you trying to make it
One of those.
less of a profile with the metal
Yeah, we were
poles?
trying to keep it more thin and delicate on the back, or on the back elevation.
What size is that?
Right now, I believe it's a 6x6.
That's my only thing. If they wrap that, that just makes it bigger in the profile.
For sure.
I'm struggling with I guess you would call it the fascia. I guess it's still called the fascia under a flat roof, but I'm struggling with the thickness of the fascia on this roof line back here as well.
The trim
When you-
piece there?
Yeah, like if you
Yeah.
really zoom in on it and I don't know, there's something that feels extremely bulky about it without a soffit and a roof overhang.
I'm sorry, so is that in reference to just the elevations or the renderings showing the soffit conditions along with it?
It is the renderings. Trying to see if I could get a page number for you. I'm so zoomed in, it won't be the same page number. See, it goes,
I have it at 54
okay.
of 63 and 53 of 63.
Yeah, I mean, even if maybe like you added some just like purely decorative trim pieces that add like some shadow lines or something that, you know, changed the proportions a little or just made it feel a little bit more historic.
Yeah, we can add some articulation onto it to make it maybe match the profile of the rest of the house.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's, like, I understand that, you know, you've got roof joists in there and that's, you know, you've got your roof joists, got your cover board, all that. So that's what's, you know, contributing to the thickness there. So I know that that can't come down once you've added the slope and everything, but I think some kind of, you know, trim piece and shadow line there or something would help it contextually work a little bit better in the historic context. Are you comfortable with that, Sarah?
I'm not comfortable with the roof line. I just don't know that I can get behind the expanse of the TPO and the roof line personally. I mean, if I'm alone in that, I'll.
So would you rather, what would you rather see? Would you rather see like something that's sloping back down towards the yard and like one,
I mean,
like
I
what
think what we
slope,
most
or-
commonly see in these, you know, little Tudor bungalows in Edgemere and Crown Heights is a bump out with a big dormer. And, you know, I think it's the addition of the outside living space that they're trying to acquire, which I get, that's delightful. But I think that that's what's kind of throwing it for me and kind of demanding the need for that extended flat roof.
I'm surprised the neighborhood didn't mention anything about this expansion. They mentioned it with the garage, but not with the,
I mean, it's tough back here because if you do a, you know, a traditional slope, even if it's low slope, you're still going to be taller than the peak of the existing roof. And I don't know, maybe that's okay if it's not much because it's really tall gables, this Tudor style, so it's unlikely that you'd see it from the public right of way. But it's either that or you're doing just one pitch towards the back.
Are these
kind of your only other options if we don't like this?
I think the fact that it's an addition and it's, one of the requirements is that it's supposed to be clear that it's an addition, it doesn't bother me.
Do we have, let's see. So like there's things, and I just want to be really clear about, you know, like the renderings are, to your point, a little different than some of the elevations. Like for instance, it says replace all exterior doors, and then in the renderings it says new wood simulated divided light, front entry with frosted privacy film. That's not something we would typically allow, correct? And what about the fan that's in this rendering? There's no reference of it on the staff report, but I don't think that that's something we would typically approve either.
I believe there actually is a ceiling fan on that porch, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong.
But I mean, do we not review exterior lighting and?
We do, and I don't know if there's a fan there or not. We've approved ceiling fans on
I just didn't see it
porches.
anywhere in the proposal,
Yep.
so I just.
Yep, I just didn't catch that item. I don't think it was listed out.
I do want to go back and point out that the only comments we did receive from the neighborhood are about the size of the garage. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions on that particular item? Appears there are none. And I'm sorry, so I don't have to dig, what is the footprint of the new garage?
1 second, I have it here.
It's like 800
It's
something.
864 square feet.
Okay.
Do we have anything showing the house with the surrounding properties visible? I was trying to.
Are the
Go through
renderings
it.
you have with your white boxes on the side, are those accurate?
Yes, they are.
Okay. It's like page 56 and 55, you can see the,
Sorry, I'm having something crazy with my screen. Give me 1 second.
The garage doesn't seem like out of proportion.
yeah, I think I'd rather just a slightly larger footprint than, going to like a 2-story garage to fit in an office, especially when it appears that there are not abutting taller garages.
Oh, yeah, sorry, no, I saw these pictures. I meant with actual, like, photos of the houses as they look surrounding the home.
Sorry.
Like this.
I think
with
in the
handout.
handout,
Yeah, the handout has.
the hand,
I'm seeing, sorry, I'm also
attachment
having
labeled
like
handout maybe.
a painfully slow load time over here on mine, so that's why I keep asking all of these, are they there questions?
Sorry, Spencer, you just gave us so much information.
So on page 18 of 27.
No,
of
we
the
appreciate
handout,
it.
You can see the existing garage. That looks like the neighbor's garage.
So here's the aerial.
There we go.
You can see.
Okay, there we go, yeah, in this handout.
Do we know what the new lot coverage would be? Do we have that calculated, the new lot coverage with the expanded footprint?
No, let me check real quick though, because I think I can do the math. I think we're roughly at 9%.
But it does
Yep.
include all paved surfaces.
Huh. What?
So that does include all paved surfaces, so driveway and,
Oh, no, I don't have the paved.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I failed to ask for that in time to get that for you guys.
Okay.
I do know that we're not drastically increasing it, and that was actually one of the reasons we wanted to do the permeable paving with part of the driveway. Since we were pushing it back, we at least wanted to create an area where we weren't going to create like a ton of additional runoff by
Sure.
doing that.
Yeah. Well, I can appreciate that. I think I could get on board with the garage. And I am on board with the addition. Roof doesn't bother me as much, I think, especially if, the trim is addressed. For me, I think the biggest thing is the steel columns. Because even on additions that, are, they're not trying to mimic exactly the historic structure. This is just not something that we've ever voted yes on, and try to stay consistent where we can on things like that. So if there's a way to possibly revisit that, but I'm personally cool with everything else.
And I'm sorry, just to make sure, on the columns, what are you suggesting that because it's a metal column currently, right?
Correct.
And you're suggesting to,
Either find a way to wrap them, or maybe a little tall for timber columns, but,
Yeah, that was the push for steel
Yeah.
because of the height.
right. No,
If we were going to ask you to come back with some changes like to the posts and maybe the front on that, would you want to come back with all of it, or do you want us to try to break it out now and improve parts of it, or do you want to just do a continuance for it?
If it's coming down to just swapping out them with timber, we could probably find a way to make that work. If you still need us to come back, that's fine as well, but if it's a conditional thing, we could address it as well that way. It just means the columns get a little bit bigger, and then we have to address the connections a bit more so they're more kind of rigid, but,
Homeowner, I was sitting beside the homeowner. So I'm Brian Fitzsimmons with Fitzsimmons Architects. Is it possible to have conditional approval if we're working with changing the columns, and possibly, are we okay with the single bay garage door or double bay garage door?
So
Well, we can go through each one of them. I was just asking his preference, but if you want to try to get
The
it all.
preference would be if
Sure.
we can approve it conditionally, that's the homeowner's wish, so.
He's saying conditionally to the columns, like, yeah, and not.
Yeah. I didn't have any concerns there were.
Sarah, are you okay with the garage door?
I'm probably not, I'm not there yet, but if I'm in the minority, I respect that. I'm struggling with the bulk of the addition and the fascia trim piece and the garage door, but that's why there are several of us up here.
The
So
current garage door is a single door.
The existing is a single and the proposed is a double, and or a single as well. Part of the reasons it's as wide as it is proportionally the existing garage on the sides, the side wraps to the garage are kind of narrow, so this in a way mimics that proportion more so.
I'm fine with it.
And I would like to add one thing on the second story addition. The ceiling heights are, correct me, 7.6. So to do anything else would require being visible from the street.
So because some of the changes that we're talking about, like the columns and, you know, the trim piece on the roof, because those are design changes, like, can we do that conditionally? Or is it because, like, that's something the Horseshoe is, or me specifically, I don't know, is asking for? Does that need to come back here? Like,
So I understand I think saying we don't want to see metal columns, we want to see wood columns, whether that's a true timber column or whether that's a metal column wrapped in wood. I think I'm comfortable with that being a condition of the approval that gets submitted to staff. The discussion on the trim piece was to take a nod from the architectural detail on the rest of the house and add something that gives a shadow line across that, and it's not just a smooth board there. So I think that's something that staff can review and handle. Those are both pretty clear cut things. The frosted glass was noted. I don't know if the applicant's comfortable with clear glass on the doors instead of frosted. We don't typically, the guidelines don't support frosted, tinted, treated
We'll
glass.
make them clear.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions or comments on this item? And if not, do we have anybody ready to make a motion? Or
ask the
motions?
public.
Oh, that's right. I think I did.
Oh, did you? Sorry.
I think maybe I did. Did I? I'll do it again. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
Sorry. Okay, well, I
There
will
being
go
none.
ahead and make a motion to approve HPCA 24-00105 with specific findings noted in the staff report and the conditions that the windows and all glass remains clear, and that the applicant work with staff on a revised column detail that is not exposed steel, and a revised trim detail on the roof.
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion and a second with conditions. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
I vote yes. It's not popping up.
Okay, that item has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item, HPCA-24-00109 at 435 Northwest 20th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Heritage Hills Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Bill Carey, Quattro Properties LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 1, repair and replace front porch elective, 2, enclosed screen side porch elective, and 3, construct new rear deck and rear opening elective. This is a new application. The commission has not seen this previously. We have recommended continuance overall on this. The proposal for the front porch modifies the historic porch roof line from a flat roof to a hipped roof, and without evidence of a previously existing historic porch with that condition, the guidelines would not support a change of that character to the front porch of the structure. On this, in closing the screen side porch, we do have criteria in the guidelines that allow for the enclosure of side porches under certain circumstances, but staff did not feel that either of the options proposed were in keeping with those criteria. And then constructing the new rear deck and rear opening, we did not identify any particular issues with that other than ensuring that we had all necessary materials fully documented.
Katie, thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay, state your name and address.
Bill Carey, 326 Northwest 16th.
Okay, tell us about the project.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for the time that you devote to historic preservation. My name is Bill Carey, and I'm here to introduce to you to a historical residence at 435 Northwest 20th. It's a 105-year-old house. It's been largely neglected for the last 30 or 40 years. I have lived in the neighborhood since 1977 and have restored 6 historical properties in Heritage Hills and Mesta Park, including my residence at 326 16th. I've spent several years on the Heritage Hills board, 3 as president, at varying times led the fights for traffic, short-term rentals, and security. This house is quite a wreck, 435. But it can be a great house when we are finished. It needs the improvements that we are seeking approval for today and many others. The front porch needs to be taken out. It is sunken and the brickwork is severely damaged. We will go back with similar brickwork and lay the same quarry tile over new concrete in the same configuration as it exists now. We would like to enhance the entry canopy as you see in the plans. As part of our reconfiguration of the interior, we want to install a double door entry to a stained wooden deck in the rear. The screened side porch is ugly and dominates the front of the house. We think we can do much more for the appearance of the house and thus for the neighborhood by replacing the screen with rehabilitated historical 15 light with true wood doors, true divided lights, in new framing as shown on the plans. I buy these old doors at Dead People's Stuff and have my painter rehab them and paint them, and they look great. If I may.
I don't think you can show us new items. Oh, we've got it? Okay. Okay.
Just pass that down the horseshoe. That's a house that I'm just finishing up over in Gatewood. Same age house. It had the porch enclosed, and we took that out and came back with the new framing and 15 light, true light, French doors. I think what this does is it enhances the porch in a historical looking way. I have canvassed the neighborhood of Heritage Hills and found 27 houses that may have originally been side porches. Most of them look good and enhance the house. I know most of them must have been done long ago as to be now considered historical. There are still a few screened porches in the neighborhood, but you have to wonder if those are even being used anymore. Now I'll turn over to Holly Hunt will step in for me and answer any questions you have or go into any more detail. Again, thank you, and I appreciate your consideration.
Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. And just some things that I wanted to point up on when we knew this was going to be an uphill battle. But of course, Mr. Carey is very aware of that. So we really wanted to get a good feedback session today and see how everybody feels and see if we, through a continuance can come to like a more clear direction. Things that I would mention on this house, either of the infills, our thinking with the aluminum glazing is that it mimics the look of a screen porch. We can match almost identically the muntins and the framework of the screen porch. So it's really just replacing screen with glass. We thought maybe that would be perhaps least impactful, or that could be your opinion. Bill Carey's preference, of course, is the historic French doors. We see this example many times in the neighborhood, and it is a very beautiful way to gain additional square footage to a historic home without doing an addition. And that's another thing, we see a lot, the rear additions, and certainly you could see that something like that happening here. But instead of doing that, we're trying to make that screen porch a more usable aspect of the home as part of this remodel. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up was that front porch little canopy. I went out and measured, took very specific measurements, so the drawings you see are actually just rebuilding exactly what's there, with the exception of straightening out that fascia and creating a better, a sloped roof over it in order to preserve the interior wall and historic fabric from water infiltration. Since there's not a real big overhang, you can see a lot of this is water infiltration based. So while we're going to rebuild it, it'll just help water get away from that porch better than the current
The
situation.
picture you have on attachment 1 on page 11, it looks like it's almost exactly like the old one, but a flat roof. You're saying it's more sloped?
I think I probably showed a couple of examples. Yeah, we would do, obviously right now what's happening is just a very low slope. It's like a half inch per foot, which is not recommended. But so,
I see that new proposed, you had 2 of them in here.
Yeah, I think she did a really nice dimension drawing of the existing.
Yes,
But
as
if you
well.
continue down, there is the proposed.
Yeah, it
in
says
order
new
to show-
construction, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I may have a bad label. But yeah, the idea there was to just show that we have taken the historic context and we are going to mimic that identically and with the same materials as part of the restoration. Working around this existing roof canopy will be difficult, and we would like to put a sloped roof on it as a way to preserve it for the next 100 years that it will live. The rest is all pretty straightforward. I would love it if we could get some of these boxes checked off in an approval, like the rear deck. Of course, I can get any additional information to staff. So yeah, I'd just love to hear some feedback on the screen porch. I know that that'll be a continued item today, so I'd love to hear feedback.
Commissioners, what questions do we have for the applicant?
I have really just one for the applicant, a couple for staff. The only thing that I can't get on board with is shifting the front facade. I believe that there are at least 2 other houses on this block specifically that do have enclosed glass, sunroom, maybe used to be a screen porch or an open porch. So I don't think that that's going to look at all historically out of sync there. And my question for staff was, I'm not really understanding exactly what we're lacking on the back deck, but certainly would be on board with that. So the only holdup I have is just changing this architectural feature on the front pretty dramatically.
I think I could probably just get them a picture of the actual doors that he's going to use. They don't have a
the
door
back
spec,
deck.
but it's because we're using ones he already has. We're not purchasing new doors, so, but I can get those to Steph.
Yeah, I'm not on board with changing the, changing the roof on the front little entrance there. I think it's a character defining piece of that elevation, and I totally understand what you're saying about water intrusion. I mean,
Sure.
I'm an architect too. That's all I do is think about water intrusion and detail around that.
Same.
I promise you.
Same.
But I think there are still ways of addressing it without changing so drastically what's already there. Do you have thoughts? Oh, okay. I thought you were about to interrupt me. Okay,
He was
sorry.
just being prepared.
Yes. I mean, yeah, ½ inch per foot is not a lot, but you know, we
make it work with TPO for sure.
We do ½ inch per foot on TPO, and I think you could probably even still work out a way to do ¾ inch or inch, even if that means just like slightly beefing up the trim a little bit.
Yeah, like a
you
bigger
know.
side profile to kind of cover that roofing material.
Yeah, I think that would be less offensive to have, you know, a taller piece that still mimics that same shape than
So
like
you really
changing.
like that step?
Than changing
wanna
it
keep
entirely.
that step, is
in,
that-
in my opinion, just because
Yeah.
it's literally front and center. It's the first
I
thing
know,
that-
because there's like nothing else to this
Yeah.
entryway. I
And
know.
it's actually so pretty.
The design, though, is falling apart. Of course, it needs restored.
Yeah,
It
I'm
needs
cool with it
restored.
being rebuilt, totally.
Right.
But I think that's a pretty important piece there. And honestly, if you do what you're proposing, I mean, really, you're just penetrating the existing envelope more. So that, you know, I don't know. I would like to see that personally. And then
There's just no risk of ice and snow sitting up there with a sloped roof. That tends to be, I think, what creates this infiltration at this location.
Sure.
As southern exposure, we get blowing winds. You know, a restoration is going to be great, and I think that's our goal. Is like to come up with a restored, maybe slightly better design for the roof, but not to take away any of these character-defining features. I mean, I think we're all in agreement with that. Yeah, that's why I took such care to measure it. But if we really like this bump, I think, yeah, we could
I do.
really
too.
reduce that.
I think we're all on board with like the understanding that it's going to come back altered from what it is and what it originally was.
Yeah,
But
so I would like to see a section detail
happy.
showing what the slope is, what, you know, our measurement of that new trim piece is going to be, just so we can really understand that.
Sure.
And then, yeah, I'm cool with the porch. I think the French doors are really pretty. The staff said no place for aluminum storefront here in that option, but I think I could be on board with the French doors. Sorry, I don't know if your mic is on. I can't hear you.
Is it not? Oh, there it is.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
There it is. So they're proposing a new entrance to the side porch to access it from the main house. It's pretty much at the front corner where it's meeting the side porch. The guidelines don't support a new entrance that far forward, so I just wanted the commission to be aware.
But is it now a new entrance?
It would
if
now
that's
be
enclosed?
Closed, right.
I would say that would be up for the commission to decide, but
that
it
through-
is cutting into the historic building.
But then we'd have to look at it as an addition, so then that gets really interesting.
Yeah, on that fireplace, there's, you know, an existing door, which will just get removed or, you know, whatever, and cased. So we were going to flank that matching opening on the other side of the fireplace, which is a very common detail in these historic homes. I don't think that's necessarily a deal breaker for us, but it would, again, make this room much more usable for future.
I mean, my opinion is if we allow it to be enclosed, I don't care what happens within it. To me, it's about whether we allow it to be enclosed or not.
I do have a question for you, Ms. Hunt.
Yes.
Were you saying that you're wanting to get feedback on whether the use of the French doors?
Yes.
Or whether just some glass?
Correct.
Or whether we want to not do either on that?
Right. What's
But
your feel
my feel on that is the French doors substantially alter the view of the home, the original character of the home. When you look at page 9 of 13 of attachment 1, and then go to page 10 of 13, I mean, there's so much, your eye is drawn so much more to the porch with all of those divided light doors in there. And I also don't think the divided light doors match the current window or the door, the current windows or the style of the door on that. So my personal opinion is, I don't think I really have a problem with it being enclosed. I know if I was buying the house, I would want a screen porch because we love screen porches in our house, and that's just my view, and it's different for everybody.
And I think what's nice about this enclosure is both options
Yeah.
could be restored back to a screen porch at any time. We would just be infilling. It's wonderful that these columns are nice and square. We don't have a great detail on them. So this will literally be an infill that could be restored.
I think the glass doors, replacing the screen with glass, I think would look very uncharacteristic. I mean, it's one thing if you want to keep
Funny
it.
that there's like two schools of thought here.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I'm just on this block so much, and there are two
There
that
are.
look
Just like.
just like what they
Just
proposed.
exactly.
Like,
With the French doors?
Yes.
Yeah, I know, there's lots of them in Heritage Hills.
And that's our goal, is just to match what we see in the neighborhood. And that's why we gave the options, because I wanted to have this conversation, because I think it is, people can be divided, like which is better, to be like very historically accurate to what's in the neighborhood, or to try to make it go away. with
Yeah, I
glass.
think the utilization of the room, the French doors to me match historically the fabric of it far more than if you tried to put some glass in there. So I'm in favor of that, and I think we're kind of on board with everything else.
Wonderful, guys,
I think
wonderful.
we may have a comment from Heritage Hills.
Please,
Yeah, I do. We do have some staff comments, or excuse me, not staff comments, comments from the neighborhood attached to this. Do we have somebody that wishes to speak on behalf of the neighborhood?
Well, Randy Ice is here, and he's the one that wrote what came into you all. We had our meeting on Sunday with Bill Carey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Name and
Oh, I'm
address.
sorry. I know so many of you. Shannon Rundle, and I have lived next door to this house for 40 some odd years. I've watched it go into a situation where if we would have gotten somebody from, not our neighborhood to be interested in this project, they would probably have gotten it approved to be torn down. It's that bad. So, and I'm also authorized to speak for Barbara Harley, who is on the other side of this. I'm on the east side of it, and she's on the west side. She actually shares a driveway with this house. It has a legal shared driveway. So we have, think what Bill is doing is great. And I think, I couldn't hear exactly, but there has always been a door to the side porch off the porch.
Yeah, they were just.
I didn't know if
they're just
that was
questioning
being contested.
cutting a
but-
new one into the existing facade. That's where we are generally a little, try to be careful about, because once you've cut in a new opening, it's hard to undo it.
Yeah,
Does
I
that
don't
make
know, I
sense?
can't remember if you're planning to put a door from the porch to the new room, are you?
It'll just be a case opening.
Okay, yeah. But anyway, my kitchen sink will look out at the side of this porch. I do like the French door idea, not glass porch. I think glass porch doesn't work. There is one across the street that was poorly done several years ago, and it has 3 kind of contemporary glass windows on the front of it, and then the side goes all the way back in the house, and there's only one tiny window. So they built just a solid wall. Well, obviously, this design is much better than that. And I think, let's see, I don't think I'm forgetting anything. I think that this is a project, we have a very experienced contractor in historic homes. And he's lived, you know, in the neighborhood forever. And I actually was on this board one time, a long time ago, too. Some of you remember me from that. But I think that, you know, it's going to be with just even minor changes that you all are thinking about. But I think it's going to make a wonderful house for somebody. And certainly those of us on each side of it will appreciate it. Do they do anything else?
I tend to be more in favor of the French doors myself. I think it'll stick out like a sore thumb if we replace it with something else, especially on this block where there is a plethora of comparable additions with the French doors facing the street. So it's certainly an anomaly, but I'm really grateful to see this house saved. And I know that doesn't mean we just get to, you know, have a free-for-all with it. But I am really, really grateful that it's going to be brought back to life. And just from kind of a bird's eye view, standing in the street, I think the French doors are more appropriate.
I prefer the French door look over the screen looking, yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions on this item, or?
My only question is,
Comfortable with the motion today, then, from what I'm hearing? I mean, obviously, we're gonna have to bring back a section detail in the front and a new design for the front. But if we feel good about the enclosed porch, I mean, if we could vote on that today, I'd be happy with that. It's up to you all.
I think that's a question
You'd
for
be happy
staff.
with that?
I'd be thrilled.
I think that's a question for staff regarding like your comfort level, and I would be comfortable voting on it today. I'd probably want to see the front facade come back to the full commission, just because I think we are going to, we don't know what you're going to come back with exactly, and you probably don't know exactly yet either. But I would be comfortable with the rest.
Yeah, are
myself.
you good with the other conditions on the deck?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys could continue item 1 to the December meeting.
Yeah, December will be good. I can
And
get
then
that background.
approve items 2 and 3 with the conditions that are noted for item 3, and then with the condition on item 2, just that we get the, I mean, the same
Sure, certainly,
specification
yeah.
on materials, details.
I sure will, absolutely.
Okay, Commissioners, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. HPCA 24-00109, that we continue item number 1 to the December meeting, and that we approve items number 2 and 3 with the conditions in the staff report.
Do we need to do that? We have to do those 2 separate motions, right?
Yeah.
The continuance and
Yeah,
then the.
we can do the continuance
Okay.
first, and then I also realized we probably need to specify on the approval of item 2 that it's for the French doors, since we were given kind of an option A, option B.
Okay, let's start with we've got a motion for continuance on item 1 to the December 4th commission meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please vote. Yep. Oh, got it?
That's to the December meeting.
Yeah, December 4th.
Oh, why did I have December 3rd?
Am I wrong on that one too?
No, I think
could
you're right.
be.
I think I'm confusing the
It's the 4th.
January 3rd. Okay.
Okay. Everybody cast your votes, please. Okay, that item number 1 has been continued to the December commission hearing. Now we've got items 2 and 3. Do we have a motion on those?
Yes, HPCA 24-0019, item number 2, for approval with the condition that we get a materials list to staff, and item number 3 with the conditions that were listed.
Okay.
Was that,
Yeah,
did
do
we
we
need
need
to
to say something about the
specify?
option?
Yeah, we need to specify that we're going with the French doors versus the,
Oh, yeah, French door, yeah, so I meant the sheets for the French doors.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval on items 2 and 3 with conditions. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I think.
Oh.
Just
I'll
pick
fight
one
you
of
for
them.
it.
Okay, commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, items number 2 and 3 have been approved. Thank you.
See you next month.
Okay,
Thank you.
our next item is, yep, we are going to take a 5-minute break. Absolutely, yes.
Oh, good. kids have been texting nonstop. They're like, I'm home, hurry.
Okay, we can come back from our 5-minute break. I believe, Keith, you're going to call roll. Confirm we still have quorum.
Milner,
Present.
Jordan,
Present.
Gaines,
Present.
Ford,
Present.
Whitley,
Present.
Wood.
Present.
We've got quorum. Okay, let's move on to HPCA-24-00110 at 413 Northwest 33rd Street.
This is in Edgemere Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Travis Phibbs for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove and expand dormers on east and north elevations, elective, and 2, demolish garage, elective. Staff did recommend approval on the garage demolition. I believe we've recommended continuance on the dormers. These are dormers that we do not believe to be historic, that the applicant has proposed to replace. Staff's concern was primarily the proportion of the dormers and the windows within the dormers potentially not being consistent with the proportions of the historic dwelling. They do not appear to be visible from the public right-of-way, and generally we're supportive of replacing those dormers in the same locations, but just concern is overall design compatibility.
Okay, the applicant is present.
Hello, Travis Phibbs. My address is 126 Northwest 22nd Street.
Okay, thank you. Tell us about the project.
Should we talk garage first or dormers first? Do you have a preference?
You can start with the dormers.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks everybody for consideration on this project. So dormers, when I purchased the house, it had a lot of deferred maintenance, as you can see in the garage and just all around the house. And so we're trying to do everything we can to revive it. It is currently a duplex. And when I bought the house, it has a stairs that does not look historic, but it is a stairs and there is a bedroom upstairs. The bedroom doesn't have access, a good ingress and egress. There's a limited amount of bathrooms in the house. There could be just some improvements and overall ability to actually have someone live upstairs. And so by doing this, we'll actually create not just kind of a bunch of closets that are upstairs or half bedrooms, I would call them. We'll actually create a space where somebody can actually live comfortably. And so the dormers that are currently there, they don't appear to be very well built. They don't appear to be historic in any way. The neighboring property, and I get the concern on size probably. These are big dormers that I'm proposing. They're going to make large portions of the bedroom that's upstairs on the east side, and then the one in the rear is going to be the bathroom. And so the bathroom is already plumbed and everything from the previous owner, but the bathroom is unusable, essentially, or not desirable, I would say, from the person of the way it was built previously. So we're going to extend that and make it a little bit more usable. Can we look at it? Can we flip through a couple of pictures here so we can talk about kind of some of the neighboring properties and the size? Can you go back to that one picture? Okay, so on the neighbor's property, they have built a second story on that property, and one of the things I wanted to ask Commission is, you can kind of see what they've done with the second story there. Would the Commission prefer to see a full second story addition towards the back of the home versus kind of expanded dormers that would make just the bedroom bigger alone? We're completely fine with building either one. It doesn't matter.
I probably have a slight preference towards anything that's completely on the rear of the house, but I'm not offended by either.
Okay. Can we go to the site plan or site plan, maybe site plan or the just the drawings in general? Did anybody else have any preliminary comments, questions? Let's pass that one. That's downstairs. This is the upstairs currently. This is currently what's upstairs. The bathroom is kind of partially in that dormer and partially in the bedroom. And so we'll the rear dormer, so that'd be the one that's on the left side of this page, 4.2. It doesn't make any sense the way it is. So the idea was to do this dormer expansion that would allow for the bathroom to be the entire back of the house and the bedroom to be more of a kind of a little bit more closer to the front. Maybe the next one. Keep going. One more maybe. No, one more. There we go. Thank you. I appreciate it. So this one would be with the dormers expanded. And so they agreed they are large dormers. They go from 4 foot to 10 foot, but it does make a really nice bedroom upstairs that somebody would actually want to live in.
Katie, if these were, I mean, I guess we could effectively kind of think about this as if they were not there at all because they're not historic. If we were just looking at entirely new dormers, what would we allow?
So the guidelines allow for the installation of dormers on the rear elevation for sure. I think there's actually some allowance for staff to administratively approve that, although we typically don't do that with something of that scale. And then I think there is new dormer, let's see, new dormer, that's additions. New dormers, if needed to make attic space usable, must be located only on non-primary facades. It's not appropriate to locate new features on front or street-facing elevations, such as on corner lots. So I think, clearly on the rear, a new dormer is appropriate and is allowed by the guidelines, supported by the guidelines. And I think you can make the case that the rear location of the side dormer is also a non-primary facade, not street-facing.
But for size, do you have a specific?
No, there's not a specific measurement or percentage or anything for the size of a dormer. Yeah, so we've approved shed dormers that spanned a large portion of the roof on some houses, and we've approved, much smaller dormers on other structures.
Then it sounds like the guidelines allow for either, and I don't think there's a strong preference, so I would say whatever makes the house most functional and allows us to approve it. I don't personally have a preference. The only comment I had about the proposed dormers as they exist in this packet is that I think staff was asking for some more proportional windows.
The square picture frame window is not typical. So I think we'd want to see something that's more of a 1/1. And yeah, if that dormer just squeezed in just a tad, I think I'd feel more comfortable with that, but.
I think it's the windows themselves, and it's also the proportion of the windows in relation to the dormer, because a typical dormer window usually fills
most of the dormer,
a much larger percentage of, like I'm showing this, of the wall of the dormer. Usually most of that wall is a window, whereas these, I think it makes the dormers feel larger because you have a very disproportionately small window stuck in a large wall area. So give yourself a pair of hung windows or casement windows, and I think that will help with the proportion issue.
I'm completely fine with that. I have no preference on the windows. The only thing I request is that there are windows that meet egress requirements by the city.
Yeah.
So I'll listen to any kind of recommendations anybody has on windows. No problem.
Katie, if we need those windows to be, is there a way to approve the dormer without approving the window? Can we separate that?
I don't know that we really could, because
Okay.
we're not going to want to issue a CA for a dormer without
a
a
window.
window identified.
Okay.
There's just not, and he wouldn't want to go forward with building.
Right.
You're not going to proceed and go try and get a permit and then have to come back and you've got to frame in the opening for the window and your plans don't match and that sort of thing, so.
Is the commission or staff feeling like it's a big enough change that it needs to come back to the commission or to staff? Or do we have a recommendation on a specific size and type of window?
I mean, I think we would need to see, like, if he's going to adjust the proportions of, you know, the dormer itself, then we would need to see the new window size in relation to that, I think. Because, I mean, clearly, as the dormer exists now, he can't make that whole thing window. And, yeah, I don't know. I would prefer to see it, but if staff's comfortable with conditional changes.
I would prefer not to change the size of the dormer to make it smaller. I think kind of like the last project we talked about, it's already kind of a weird shaped room. There's no reason to make it any more weird than it is. Also, the north side of the dormer is going to stay right where it's at. No changes to the north side of the dormer, and the south side of the dormer is going to be above a support wall. At that 10-foot mark, so there's a little bit of a structural advantage to be there.
Okay.
Size of windows, I think if we can talk about our recommended size, and I can just match that and submit it to the planning department if that's acceptable.
Would we be hoping to see like a pair of 1/1s? What are we thinking?
I think it could handle a pair at that size.
10 foot?
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon for dormers to have multiple windows in them. They're not always just like, you know, 3-foot wide dormers with a
You're doing a
30-inch window,
10-foot
you know?
dormer?
Yes, sir.
So 2 by 4s? 2 over 2s, and 2 of them next to each other?
That's completely fine with me. No problem.
I know you asked us if we would prefer to see an addition or the 2 dormers.
Mm-hmm.
What would you prefer to have?
I've went back and forth on it. I don't necessarily have a preference. It's kind of whatever fits. If it's whatever fits best in the neighborhood or in the eyes of the commission, in the eyes of historic preservation.
Well, the reason I was asking that before we move forward with approving 2 dormers, if you do believe you would like to submit plans for possibly something different, if that would fit better with your plan, then you might want that item continued.
For sure. I think the plan as submitted is a very good plan. I think it opens up the room enough that somebody would want to live up there. It's a space somebody would want to be in, especially with 2 windows. You're going to have a lot more light up there, and it's going to be a pleasant room. If a second story that matches the one that's right next door or on your side, right next door is a better look, if the commission feels there's a better look, then I'd be completely fine with doing that as well. But
I'm fine with the dormers.
I like the dormers.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Yeah,
No real preference.
no, I was just gonna say, you know, when you resubmit with 2 windows, just make sure that you're matching the same like spread mold detail where you have pairs of windows on the first story.
Yes, we can match that.
yeah.
No problem.
And then obviously the same, you know, trim and sill details where you can. But otherwise, if staff is okay with, you know, the window and materials and all that, I think we can move forward.
The second item on here is demolish garage. I'm assuming there's going to be a plan to rebuild a garage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know sometimes we've made a suggestion to handle those together, that if we're voting to demolish a garage, that they join plans to rebuild the garage.
But we haven't done that.
Yeah, we can't force
Talked
people
about
to
it, but
rebuild.
we've never.
Yeah, I mean, I think this garage is pretty
never remember
clearly.
what-
I think it's
what
the
the-
opposite
the-
of what you just said. I think it's we don't have to have.
Yeah, we don't have to do that, because even if we approve, you know,
They don't have
new
to build
plans,
it.
they don't have to build it, yeah.
So we have to be comfortable
what
with
it
it.
is.
Just,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with this garage being demolished.
Yes.
So I think it clearly shows that it's not salvageable in its current state.
Okay, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? There being none, commissioners, any last questions, or do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve HPCA-24-00110 with the specific findings noted in the staff report, and the condition that the applicant works with staff on the revised window proposal design.
Second.
And I'm sorry, do we have to do these separate because one is a demolition? Okay, so this is.
Oh, yeah, item 1.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion for number 1 with conditions. Do we have a second? Second. We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote. Okay, that item has been approved with conditions. Do we have a motion on number 2, demolish garage?
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve HPCA-24-00110, item 2, with the specific findings noted in the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Second.
Do we have a second? We do. Commissioners, please cast your votes. And item 2 has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the commission consideration on and the staff helping me through the process. Thank you all.
Okay, HPCA-24-00111 at 1425 Northwest 35th Street.
This is in Putnam Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Marcus Gwynn for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows, elective. This is kind of an unusual house. This is a ranch-style house built in 1974 in Putnam Heights. And they would like to replace their metal presumed original windows in the house. We did not get a lot of documentation from them on condition of the windows, but what they noted is, and what is typical of this type of window, is that they have a lot of issues with condensation forming on the windows and then condensating into the house, causing other types of water damage. They have proposed an aluminum window replacement. Typically, we don't support just a straight aluminum window, but as a replacement for a metal window, that's not necessarily an inappropriate option. In my opinion, even though this house is not of the era of Putnam Heights, it is 50 years old. It is reflective of an architectural style of its time, and it is, as far as we can tell, largely intact. So I would support consideration of a replacement window that's more consistent with the character of the windows that are there, particularly on the front elevation. But the guidelines do allow the commission some discretion with replacement of features on structures that you consider to be non-historic. And obviously, when we have not the typical double-hung wood window, there's some discretion there with the way the guidelines talk about an appropriate replacement design and material. So we did recommend a continuance. We are kind of lacking some of those full details on the window documentation itself.
Are they here? Is anybody here?
I don't believe so. You're not with this project, correct? Correct? No, you're observing.
I do not believe the
I feel like we got to
applicant
continue it, but we
is
can still
present.
state our opinions for the record so that they can have some feedback.
Yes, I think it'd be really helpful for the applicant to know if it is continued, if they need to be looking for an alternative design, or if you all are generally comfortable with what they've provided.
Commissioners, any thoughts or comments on this one for the record?
I'm fine with metal windows here, with an aluminum replacement, because I assume that they would be a double-paned window with a thermal break. These old griddle windows, are tough. They do let in a lot of condensation and honestly a lot of moisture too. But I would want them to match as closely as they could, because I think I don't know, I personally think, you know, the Muntin detailing is intentional, and I would want to see that in a revised design, but I have no problem with an aluminum window. And like, I see that they're wanting to, you know, utilize, you know, single hung windows so they can actually, you know, open them a little bit better or have openings where they didn't before. And I think I'm still fine with that. I would just want to match the existing gridded Muntin design personally.
I agree with all of that. I think that these windows, the specs on these windows are very contributing to the specific era and genre of house.
I think you lose a lot of character by just going full single pane. But
so broadly, we are a yes on this, provided they can.
Yeah, we need documentation on current windows, correct?
If you all want more detail on the current condition of the windows, we can certainly ask for that. I was comfortable with just their kind of description of what the issues are with these windows, but I may just be, this is what my parents had, so I am familiar with the issues that these windows present, but
Yeah, I
we can
mean-
certainly ask for them to more fully describe the justification for replacement.
I just
And
want to
then-
make sure we're in line with what we have asked prior
Yes.
in this meeting.
Yeah.
If there, you know, if it's just documentation of measurements, if that is standard, I just
yeah,
think
if
we
you're
should
comfortable
ask
with
it.
the replacement, then yeah, no problem here. So on that note, should we continue to make sure that they're comfortable with our proposed?
Yeah, I think we
Yes.
should make sure we're on the same
Yes.
page.
We have not discussed that with,
Are you
Might be our
here
applicant.
for an item? Are you Marcus? Yes. Okay, please come to the
Okay.
front. We're
Hi,
talking
Mar-
about your item right now. You made it.
Sorry.
Please state your name and your address. for the
Marcus
record.
Quinn, 1425 Northwest 35th Street.
You made it. You made it. So we can kind of back up. We were I kind of at a point where we were just talking about the condition of the windows. I think we're generally in favor of the replacement of the metal. We would just like some documentation of the windows you're replacing and kind of the condition they're in, and you can work with staff on that. But commissioners, is there anything else you want to add while he's here?
Yeah, the other main comment we had was that, you know, we're totally cool with you replacing with an aluminum window, which is something we don't normally allow, but because you've got existing metal windows, it's kind of a different issue. But we do feel strongly that the existing Muntins on there, so you know, your grids, your individual panes, that those are like pretty character defining of the architectural era of that kind of late mid-century ranch style house, and that we would prefer if your new windows could still match that. You know, we're cool with where it might have been a fixed window that didn't open. If, you know, it's now a single hung that does open, we would just, you know, want to see the actual Muntins there. Does that make sense?
Like the grid?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Are
I'm
you
good e-
okay
I'm
with
good, I'm
that?
good either way, yeah, honestly. I preferred no grids at first because it's been so hard to see out for so long, but I'm sure just being able to clean it will be a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can work with staff on what kinds are acceptable for that.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to come back here if you just work with them and give them the new documentation.
Okay, yeah, so from the contractor, get them the pictures of what it would look like with the grids?
Measurements.
Oh, the measurements are all in there.
Measurements and specifications that show, you know, the general sizes and, you know, how the window is built.
I put in the documents I sent them, the dimensions of the windows aren't gonna change, and the types of windows that we're going in. The only difference was gonna be whether I needed grids or not. The same type of window, it'll just be with or without grids. It's like a $35 difference per window.
Yeah, with
Yeah, I think we-
grids, but also for our documentation, we would like some pictures of the windows. Like, obviously, there's condensation that's happening. If you could get some pictures of that.
Because they're single pane,
Yeah.
and there's like on some of them, there's like a storm over the top that you have to almost demo off and then demo back on. I haven't touched it because it's above my pay grade to try to mess with that.
Can you see the condensation from the inside?
Yes.
Yeah, just take a picture from the inside.
Okay, I mean, only on certain weather days
Right.
of
Sure.
humidity.
We're about to
it
get
gets
some
in
wet
between.
weather, so.
Yeah, and yeah, we understand that's the biggest issue. So if there's pictures where we can see that, I think that would be enough.
Okay.
Friday, it's going to rain, so get your camera out Friday.
I want to clarify on the grids that we're talking about, not necessarily, I think, a structural muntin, but a muntin that is on the outside of the glass, like that is the same material as the window, that gives the same look as the muntins that you have there, not just like the plastic, in between the glass grids like you see on a window.
We're talking like profiled, not flat.
Right.
From the outside, it is flat.
On the,
Yeah, there's only profile on the inside of the house, not the outside.
Right, but it's
That's
still,
as it is right now,
But
right?
there's still some depth to it because the glass is in the center of the muntin, right?
Because there's only a single pane there.
Right.
So what you see there is just a single glass. On the other side, there's a BB hole. And so it's just open air from the inside to the outside of the house.
So you're talking, it's a pane of glass and the muttons are on the inside?
On the big bay window at the front, yeah. Those aluminum 1970s muttons, is that what they're called?
Yes.
Those ones are on the inside. They're not on the outside.
So they're
Those
just,
have a little lip on the outside, and I don't think there's a lip on the inside. Like I see that little groove there on the outside, but I don't think there's one on the inside.
I mean, those are individual panes of glass, not just one big pane of glass.
Right.
Which means that the muntin would have to be on both sides in order to sandwich.
So that-
It may be more flat of a
Right.
profile, but it is, you are able to touch the metal muntin on the inside and the outside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So
almost looks like there's an exterior, like there's
Yeah.
a storm.
Right.
That's
These
been-
look exactly like my brother-in-law's. Especially that front bay with the storm the way it is. And his are profiled on the inside as well.
Yeah, they're profiled on the inside like by 1.5 inches. Do I have to replicate that part?
So I think, we don't generally look closely at what the inside of the window looks like. What I would say is that the general direction from the commission is that the windows need to have muntins that approximate the look of the historic windows, and staff can work through that with you, and if we can't come to a point of agreement, we can bring it back to the commission for their consideration, if you
Yeah.
all are comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And they know what that term is, the mutton?
They
word?
should know what that is.
They'll let me know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
storm window outside.
Okay, commissioners, do we have a motion on this item now that the applicant has been here and we've been able to discuss?
Is this,
Can you go to the page with the cat in the window?
It's a great
That's
picture.
Nala.
And you can, I'm just trying to understand.
Okay.
it almost looks like a storm window in front of a regular window.
On the front-facing one right there where the tree is, there's a storm
Yeah.
in front of that one. The two side windows don't have that. But all the bay windows do except for the far one.
Yeah, do
The-
we have a picture of the
If you
side
scroll
window
through,
that
they're all in there.
that clearly has? Or is that?
Page 7 of 12
Yeah.
on the attachment 1, I don't know if that helps.
And that's the big front window, I guess, 'cause of that.
Yeah, so
Okay, yeah, so, yeah.
There's no storm over this one, any of the two small ones like that. Neither one of those have storms. That's just the screen to the outside. And you can see the caulking around the outside needs to be replaced, like, so to mess with that window is, like, you gotta fully go for it.
That's a big space if that cat's in there, so there must be some sort of.
And I wasn't sure when the historic part kicks in, because it was in the 70s, it's
Me
not
neither.
1909 historic, it's,
Generally, it's 50 years
Okay.
is what makes it historic. So you're close. You're literally right there if it's 1974. It's 50 years old. If you had come last year, it would have been different.
I'd have known. Our biggest concern, obviously, is energy efficiency and trying to replace it with the current modern window
No, for sure, and we are
appearance.
fully support that. So we're not going to make you replace it with a true divided light, that's single pane glass, because, I mean, yeah, what's that gonna do for you? So I think we're okay to move forward with an approval.
Yep.
Yep, okay. Then I will make a motion to approve, sorry, I lost it. Approve HPCA 24-00111 with the specific findings noted in the staff report, with the condition that the proposed windows match the existing Muntin pattern and profile as closely as possible, and that the applicant gets with staff to provide that documentation.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve with conditions. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that item has been approved, and just be sure to follow up with staff and kind of get those final plans and dimensions,
Via email and phone?
documentation. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Glad you made it.
okay, other business. Oh,
Other business, sorry, we were just saying, I don't think I've had that happen ever where the applicant for the very last item and in the room at the end of the meeting.
I love it.
So we have under other business, our schedule of commission meetings and our schedule of historic preservation workshop meetings. We have to have you all approve the schedules and then we send them to the city clerk's office prior to the end of the year. So if we could just get a motion and a vote on each of those.
okay, we'll start with item A, schedule of the 2025 Historic Preservation Commission meetings. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, what are we?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve the schedule of the
Oh,
regular
thank you.
2025
I was just
HP meetings.
railroading it through, wasn't I?
Okay.
Just,
I'll second.
okay, commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Yay, from me. I exit.
He's already checked out.
He's like, I'm done, sorry.
Okay, the commission meeting dates have been approved, and now we need a motion to approve the workshop
I
meeting
will
dates.
make a motion to approve the 2025 workshop meetings.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Did everybody vote? Do we need any? Okay. The workshop meeting dates have been approved. Okay, communications and reports, administrative approvals.
Nothing in particular to call out. As always, you all can contact us anytime if you have questions about any of those. We did not have any withdrawals or administrative closings to report, and no city council items at this time. I will note that there is a meeting this evening for kind of a small stakeholder group about the accessory dwelling ordinance, and I will report back on the outcome of that and its progress. And then under Board of Adjustment, I wanted to clarify, it says November 3rd, but it's actually November 7th tomorrow. We have an application that was appealed by the applicant that will be heard at Board of Adjustment. This is kind of an unusual case. They were actually approved with conditions, and they've appealed that. So
They didn't want the conditions?
I would anticipate it being remanded back to HP Commission based on previous experience. But
Is
I will-
that what, just for clarification, they're going to Board of Adjustments to remove the conditions?
They're going to Board of Adjustment, yes, because they ultimately were not, I guess, in favor of the project as it was approved.
Okay, I'm sorry, which, let me make sure.
It's a Board of Adjustment item. It's 3233 North Harvey Parkway.
It's item yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And nothing else for me.
Okay, so the Planning Commission, anything from your municipal counselor's office?
No.
Okay.
Great meeting, Ms.
Okay. I've got to read, don't I? Next meeting date. The next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, December 4th at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Building, City Council Chamber. New applications for this meeting were received November 5th, 2024. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, November 12th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, November 13th, 2024, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in the Embark Large Conference Room.
Are we
Katie, is this happening?
So
or did
we
that-
have been talking about trying to do something on kind of zoning, PUDs, SPUDs, how those work, why they come to HP, what's HP supposed to do with them when they come to us, that sort of thing. I will poll the commission for availability to confirm that we have enough people attending to make it worthwhile, and I also want to reach out to, I would want to be sure to get neighborhood representation to attend as well, so.
I have it on my calendar.
Okay.
Okay, items from commissioners. Any citizens to be heard? Okay, if not, we can adjourn at 5:01 p.m. Thank you, everybody.